disappointed in every one of you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I kiss you on the mouth.
No, I'm not cool with that. I'm sorry.
One more time.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I mean, I'm dealing with degenerate animals.
I'm disappointed in every one of you. Disappointed in every one of you.
All right, come on.
Honestly, I can't do it, man.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
Let me tell you why.
It's gonna be all right, Nicky. Go ahead, shoot.
You just killed a fucking man.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, because you got nothing. You don't got a thing. Yeah, because you got nothing. Got nothing.
I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need
BDA boxing.
All right. Welcome everybody to another BDA Boxing podcast, broadcasting to you live from the True North. This is your host, Mr. BDA, and I sure am glad that everybody could be on board for this one, fellas. In this episode, we got a fantastic one for you. Another edition of our patented call-in show. You guys get to call in, give us your thoughts on anything and everything boxing. It's a couple of things going on. No major fights are gonna, attract the casual fan, but for us hardcore boxing fans, there's quite a bit on the table, so we're going to get through that. A couple of the rumors and some of the drama going on in the boxing community, and you guys get to call in and let us know all about your thoughts on the matter. Before we get down to the fun, let's get the business side of the way, fellas. You know the drill. If you want to donate a couple of shekels our way, you're certainly welcome to do so via the Super Chat feature. You can also join the membership program to get more bang for your buck. Also, check out our Patreon page. Patreon, we're posting some free content over there for everybody. Do sign up, however, for free, just to let us know how many people are watching the content and who's enjoying it. Recently posted up 2 videos, one about Ennis versus Stanionis and another about Cepeda Farmer, taking place this Saturday, by the way, the rematch. And more videos incoming, so make sure to do that. Don't forget, you can also donate via Buy Me a Coffee, which is a fantastic app. That way you get more bang for your buck because you get to donate your money and YouTube doesn't take away 30% like they do with the Super Chat. So something to keep in mind. The most important thing, however, is that you continue to like, subscribe, and you spread that BDA gospel. All right, fellas? Shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm talking about DJ Big Leg, Warp Speed, SSC. Shout out to SSC, one of the initiated. Dark Hay Dog, Oliver Klosoff, Handsome Mechanic, Hard Recoil, Sergeant, Mars Boxeo, The Blame Boxing, Alfredo Contreras, Sam Rando, Grim Reaper, Mario Ponce 24, Quick Sloth, Super Sardonic, and many more people to come, I'm sure. Fellas, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right. So it's a call-in show. The phone number is going to be posted, boom, right there, left-hand middle portion of your screen, and I will also be posting it intermittently, whatever, in between the show, right there, marquee, attraction time. And what else? All right, so let's get a couple of things going here about, again, I didn't know what to put in the title, so I'm just going to start with that one subject. Actually, before I do that, let's talk about some of the fights that are going to be taking place this Saturday, just to give you a quick rundown, and then I'll get to the juicier drama stuff. This Saturday, we got the Cepeda Farmer rematch on the zones. Check that one out. It's 12 rounds this time, so should be pretty interesting. I got a lot to say about that, by the way. And I got a couple of things I already said in a BDA Clips video, our secondary channel, BDA Clips. Make sure to check it out. I just posted a video about Tevin Farmer's clinching in that fight and whether it made a difference in the first fight and could it prove to be another pivotal tactic in the rematch. So make sure to check that out over at BDA Clips, our secondary channel. So that's one of the fights that we've got on Saturday. In the morning, however, there is another fight from the land of the rising sun, Japan. The Japanese, like Jesse Lee Peterson says, the Japanese, well, there's a fight, very good fight. Angel Ayala defending his title, I believe. You guys know I don't follow the titles, but I think he has a title. And who's going to be defending it against, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the first name correctly, but Yabuki, who holds the distinction of being the only guy to beat Kenshiro Toraji. Of course, Toraji got his revenge in a rematch, ended up stopping Yabuki, but Yabuki also recently beat Nochinga, or Nochingas, as I like to call him. He's the guy that got knocked out by Adrien Curiel and then had his own revenge. So you see, there's a lot of back and forth in these divisions. One guy gets, the favorite gets upset by a stoppage loss, then he gets his revenge by stoppage, and on these things of ours go. So should be an interesting fight. Both guys bring it. Angel Ayala had a somewhat controversial decision over Felix Alvarado, who's a heavy-handed guy. I'd never seen that fight before. I was watching it today earlier. Still have to finish it. And I get a little bit contentious because some people in the comment section were saying that Alvarado should have gotten the nod. So Ayala, be it as it may, never stopped trying. He got dropped in the first round against the aggressive, heavy-handed Alvarado, and he was still going. He kept on swinging throughout 12 rounds. And Yabuki's a big puncher, 16 knockouts at the 17 victories. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that fight. Should be, at least on paper, it looks like it's going to be a heck of a fight. Potential Fight of the Year contender. We already saw Taraji create a Fight of the Year contender a couple of weeks ago. Will Ayala and Yabuki manage to pull off something similar? We'll see. We'll see. All right, so on to and I have more to say about these fights later, but I just don't want people to get confused because of what's in the main title of this page. Let me just check if we got any phone calls incoming here. All right, not for the moment. So let me start off with this Terence Crawford thing, because Crawford is doing a couple of interviews in the build-up to the Canelo school fight, which would then result in a potential Canelo-Crawford fight in September. And Crawford's, again, I generally dislike the guy because, and it still amazes me to see that some people just don't see it. He's a very conceited type of fella, quite obnoxious and narcissistic. And listen, almost every top fighter in boxing, and I'm talking professional, world-class, pound-for-pound fighters, have to have some sort of an ego. There's no guy that goes in there I shouldn't say no guy. Maybe there's an exception, but for the most part, a lot of guys who get to this level have to have some level of confidence that borders on what's the word I'm looking for here? Not overconfidence, but cockiness, for example. And you see it. Even Lomachenko's a guy who wasn't a big talker, but then you saw when he fought Richard Comey and dropped him hard in that fight, instead of going for the finish, he's looking over at Comey's corner and saying, "Hey, stop the fight." That to me said that what Lomachenko was trying to convey is, "Hey, I'm so good, I'm so dangerous that if you let me at this guy, I'm going to kill him, and I don't want to because I'm good friends with the guy we used to spar, blah, 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 so please don't make me hurt him." I'm thinking, two-time gold medalist, multiple division champ at that time, pound-for-pound guy. Did he not realize that if he doesn't stop this guy, Comey might stop him, and he might not be as generous with his pity as he was with Comey? So, that to me showed a little bit of arrogance from Lomachenko. And actions speak louder than words, and we've seen Crawford do both, actions and words, that denote that he's a bit of a cocky guy, arrogant, out of touch even. But don't let me be the one to just say that. Let me show you what I mean by that. He's talking about the Canelo fight, and this is what he had to say. "I've been doubted my whole career. Ask anyone who's been following me. And with all of the negative things that have been said about Terence Crawford." All right, so first of all, he's referring to himself in the third person, like Roy Jones, another guy who, he's so nice now and so warm and personable, Roy Jones. But people forget when he was in his prime, he was very obnoxious, very unaccommodating to the fans, not fighting whom people wanted to see him fight, and also very cold towards the media. So I guess it has some, I don't know, maybe too much testosterone, maybe too many PEDs by way of Victor Conte. I don't know. But he's starting to talk in the third person now. So he says that he's always been doubted his whole career. He says, they never thought that I would be in this place that I am now. First of all, who's they? I don't know who he's talking about. A lot of vagueness in his comments. They don't want me to do this. I've always been doubted. But it did. It's funny to say, but I've been hearing this my whole career. I'm too small for this guy. This guy's too strong. This guy punches too hard. I don't have a chin, or I'm this, or I'm that. I just take it all in and laugh. First of all, I doubt the whole I just take it in and laugh. I mean, he's on Twitter constantly talking about how great he is and defending himself from people. So evidently, he's not taking it all in and just laughing it off. He really cares what people have to say. As he should, by the way. I'm not castigating him for caring. I mean, we all care about to one degree or another, about what people say about us. But I'm just saying, don't try to pretend like it's not bothering you when you're out there on Twitter about your self-professed greatness. And I want to go back to the first statement here, the first part of this. I've been doubted, he says, my whole career. Well, every fighter has doubts. Everybody's doubted in boxing. Lomachenko was doubted. Usyk was doubted. Inu has been doubted. A lot of people are doubting Jaron Ennis at this point. So everybody gets doubts. So I don't understand why he feels as if that's something that's exclusive to him. Ask anyone who's been following me, and with all the negative things that have been said about Crawford along the way. Again, that goes for everybody. And I don't see anything overtly negative or something. I don't see Crawford being treated differently than everyone else. And by the way, you know, people can have criticism of Terence Crawford, as I have, and it's valid criticism. It's not coming out of a place of delusion or hate. It's just, it is what it is. The good has to be pointed out with the bad. You know, just as Terence Crawford, he's a very good fighter, but there's also room for criticism. He's not a perfect fighter. Is that what he's trying to convey, that he's perfect and that he's beyond criticism? I wouldn't doubt it, seeing as some of the things he's said and some of the things he's done. Then he says, I've been hearing this my whole career. I'm too small for this guy, or this guy's too strong, or this guy punches too hard. I don't have a chin. First of all, I've been following Crawford's career ever since he first appeared on HBO. I don't recall anybody really saying that. I'm pretty sure there must have been, right? But I didn't see this coordinated mass of people saying, oh, this guy's never going to make it. In fact, HBO was pushing him hard during his tenure in the lightweight division and thereafter. So did ESPN. And again, this guy had the backing of Top Rank Promotions, one of the best, if not the best, especially at the time, not so much now. But at the time, it was probably the best promotional company in the world. So he's being backed by the best promotional company in the world, in the home of boxing, on HBO. Thereafter, he moves on over to ESPN, where they constantly slobber his knob. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for Crawford. He only focuses on the bad. And I don't remember, you know, if you look at some of the odds for his fights, I think he's always been the favorite ever since he beat Yuriakis Gamboa. The only fight that was close where he wasn't the overwhelming favorite was against Errol Spence. So again, I don't understand where this is coming from, that this coordinated mass of people or this overwhelming number of people have been downing him. And I don't remember anyone saying that he's too small or that guy's too strong against him or that these guys punch too hard for him. I've never really seen that. I've seen the media be very accommodating to Terence Crawford, even now. They're very accommodating of Terence Crawford. Just look at when his appearance on the Zone, when his stablemate Steven Nelson was boxing Pacheco. They showed Crawford's face on the screen as he's watching the fight, and one of the commentators goes, wow, look at him locked in. You can just see he's doing the calculations in his head. And then Sean Porter, who was a special guest commentator, goes, that's exactly what it is. I'm thinking, all right, does that sound like a guy that's being besmirched and doubted by people? I don't know. Then he goes, and by the way, Top Rank, I remember Juan Manuel Marquez in 2004 was with Top Rank. They offered him a good deal, $600-something thousand to fade Pacquiao. And I got to take into consideration, Marquez was a nobody at the time. I say nobody. I say nobody in comparison to Barrera and Morales, who were the real Mexican stars at the time. He was second string to those guys. And yet he demanded more money from Top Rank, and that's when Top Rank gave him the boot and forced him to go to Indonesia to take on Chris John for $30K. But even then they were offering him good money, but he was still second string on Top Rank, whereas Crawford was always treated properly by Top Rank. They kept paying him his premium during the pandemic, apparently. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I heard. He was getting paid good money during the pandemic where everyone else was taking pay cuts. And then they put him in there against an emaciated Kell Brook who looked like an Ethiopian refugee. So again, I don't understand where this is coming from Crawford, that, oh my God, I was so besmirched, I was so doubted, Top Rank always hated me. It's like Top Rank treated him very, very well. In fact, they keep treating him well. Bob Arum once said, oh, we're still open with working for Crawford and this and that, heaping praise on the guy. Doesn't sound like a company that hated the guy. And by the way, what happened to Crawford's lawsuit against Top Rank? You remember he was alluding to the fact that they didn't live up to their arrangement, to their contract, and then he called them racist on top of that, or racists. That's what Crawford says. They're going to say we're a bunch of racists. But yeah, so I don't understand where Crawford is coming from with all of this. This is insane. And he says, I'm still being doubted. That's what he says. But then again, what a coincidence. I'm looking at Twitter, and as he's saying that in Ring Magazine, it's like, oh, hey, I'm being doubted even to this day. Check this out. Dimitri Bivol tells Ring that Terence Crawford can beat Canelo Alvarez. So as he's saying that, and I'm reading the article from Crawford about Crawford, him moaning about how he's being besmirched and underrated and blah, blah, blah. I see this article of Bivol telling the Ring Magazine that Crawford has a very good chance of beating Canelo. And then he says, I saw him a month ago. He's big, has very good skills. He's one of my favorite boxers. So add Bivol to the growing list of so-called experts and former fighters and current fighters who believe that Crawford is just way too smart for Canelo. He's a boxing wizard. Remember, when he watches boxing, he's doing the calculations in his head, like Sean Porter agreed with. So I don't understand why Crawford has to paint himself as a victim while simultaneously speaking in the third person, thus denoting that he's highly confident, perhaps overconfident. Then he says, haters are undercover fans. Once I did get my hands on Spence, Sean Porter, and Kell Brook, they said I got them late and bruised up. There was always an excuse. Certain groups in boxing thought these guys were going to beat me. Again, the only group, and I will say this, the only group that I did see that ever said that Crawford was sucked and that he didn't have a chin and that he doesn't punch hard enough were the Spence fans in the whole build-up to the Spence fight. Or in fact, I shouldn't say just the build-up. I should say, when I say the build-up, I'm talking about the whole 5 years that preceded that fight, because it was a long and entertaining saga. Those were the only guys that I saw really denigrating Terence Crawford. Everyone else said, hey, this guy's pretty good. In fact, the odds makers believed it by making him the favorite. But then again, he says, they say that he says that people are making excuses about why Spence, Sean Porter, and Kell Brook weren't the same. And I'm thinking, well, you can call them excuses, you can invent your own word for what it is and call it a Wurschenfreit or whatever. Still doesn't change the fact that there are legitimate reasons why these guys weren't the same anymore. Sean Porter had one foot out the door. Like I said, Kell Brook looked like an Ethiopian refugee in the waiting for the fight. In fact, I could actually show you the whatchamacallit. Could actually show you the picture. I'm looking for the picture here. I don't even know where it is. But anyway, take my word for it. If you want me, I'll show it to you guys later. But I'm just in the zone now, trying to hone in on a lot of these messages from Crawford. Some of these statements, rather. Then he says that life is great. No, wait. He said something else here. He said, oh yeah, he says, people who have negative thoughts of me have never been in the ring before. It doesn't even bother me. Well, he's protesting too much for a guy who says it doesn't bother him. Second of all, he's making an appeal to authority here when he says, people who have negative thoughts of me have never been in the ring before. First of all, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know who's been in the ring and who hasn't. Second of all, he's trying to insulate himself from criticism by saying, well, that criticism is invalid because these people haven't done that. Whether someone's boxed or not before doesn't devaluate the criticism that people have against him. And that's because Crawford can't deny these things. I mean, he can deny them, but he can't address them directly. Probably because he doesn't have the brain power to do it. I'm sorry, it's just the reality. Look at everything he's saying. A lot of vague statements, nebulous statements, but at the same time, he keeps talking about his self-professed greatness. And he said that before. And I've rarely heard pound for pound fighters, unless it's a guy like Mayweather or maybe Roy Jones, but I've never really heard too many people talk about themselves as great. And Crawford has said that a whole bunch of times. He said it to Teofimo Lopez. He said, enjoy my greatness. He said it to Eddie Hearn. He said, respect greatness when you see it. And I said, wow, who else is doing this? Well, Shakur Stevenson and Clarissa Shields, two members of what I call the Crawford squad, actually have very similar characteristics in their behavior. But all of those people, Clarissa Shields and Shakur Stevenson and Terence Crawford, have this victim mentality that everyone's against them. They're also quite adroit in reminding people about how great they are. And in Crawford's case, he's got a point, but in Shakur Stevenson's case, hasn't really done a third of what Crawford's achieved. And or even Clarissa Shields, even say what you want about women's boxing, and I certainly don't know much about it, but I've heard people say that the divisions in which she's competing are pretty thin. But at least she's accomplished way more than Shakur Stevenson, relatively speaking, in terms of women's boxing. So, but they're all three of them are people that are constantly complaining on Twitter about how great they are and how they're besmirched they are and how overlooked they are. Meanwhile, the mainstream media and a lot of fans are bending over for them. People like to complain about how Lomachenko was being overhyped by ESPN and Top Rank, but they didn't have a peep to say about Shakur Stevenson being overhyped by Top Rank and ESPN. And I mean, listen, at the end of the day, ESPN, Top Rank, it's their job to overhype a guy saying, hey, it's a business. Hey, look at who we have here. You got to watch this guy. I mean, that's the point, right? Get eyeballs on the guy. But I'm talking about the hypocrisy of people saying, well, I never liked Lomachenko because he was always overhyped. I mean, meanwhile, the real reasons were different. That's what for his dislike. But like I said, when Shakur Stevenson was fighting on ESPN and Top Rank, people were overhyping him, and it wasn't until little by little people started realizing this guy's not it. They also overhyped Terence Crawford, even though, again, some people could argue that the hype was merited. Although now I will argue with people, a lot of people are overhyping him and his intelligence, his ring IQ, his boxing intellect. But then again, Clarissa Shields, the same thing. She's always talking about how, people hate me. I'm thinking, well, you're giving people reason to hate you with all this crying. And especially when it's crying over things that you deserve to get criticized over. So that's the thing with Terence Crawford. He had to appeal to authorities saying, well, and by the way, how does he know that there's no people who have boxed before who have criticism of him? There's plenty of people, Errol Spence had a lot of criticism of him, and he was a boxer. But does that mean that the criticism was invalid? Because I don't understand what he's not arguing properly, and I think he says haters are undercover fans. So he's trying to make himself feel good, like, okay, these people hate me, but that's because they secretly love me. Again, that denotes what I was talking about earlier, this inflated sense of worth that he has, this of character. But anyway, we'll see what happens with old Terence Crawford. Again, he's not fighting. No tune-up for the potential Canelo fight, so I don't know if that's a good idea. But then again, he could potentially get injured. And I'm not a fan of Canelo. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't make this fight in May. I guess they want to try to milk as much money from Canelo as possible, knowing that he's, Canelo sells, so hey, let's make a fight with him and somebody else. But Canelo could get injured in that school fight. Could bust a knuckle or break a knuckle or injure one of his already semi-injured knees. I don't know. Guys, don't forget to hit the like. It really helps us out. It's a call-in show, so make sure to call in. The phone number is right there in the left-hand middle portion of your screen. And I want to hear from you. Let me just look at my notes here. Did I have anything else to say about Crawford? Hold on a second. I'm listening. I heard something here. Like I said, don't forget to hit the like, fellas. And call in. The phone number is right there in the left-hand middle portion of your screen. This is your show. Please don't let me babble on for 2 hours, because I can, by the way. I can babble. And in between my babbling, I can start reading some Bible quotes. Coffee. I was checking my Buy Me a Coffee. I heard an alert here. What was it? I'm checking on my... Okay, yeah, so I'm trying to look for something here. Anyway, fellas, if nobody calls in, I don't know what to tell you. If nobody calls in, I'm going to be quite angry. Okay, so here's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Somebody's calling in. Hold on a second. All right, so hopefully now more people get the message that we are taking calls here. Let's go to 336. 336, you're on the air. 336, what's on your mind?
I'll just kind of make it short here. I don't know why you keep talking about this guy, to be honest. He's an inactive guy. He doesn't fight often. And he's just like making noise on social media to kind of like keep himself relevant, or maybe to make sure as many people watch the Canelo fight as possible. there's like so many other future matchups across multiple weight classes we could be talking about, but we're talking about some dude, some like lunatic on his way out the fucking door.
Some lunatic. Yeah, first of all, can I just say? Can I just address? Can I just address something real quick? I'm spending the first couple of minutes talking about him. That the whole show is not about him. I even said that in the beginning. But go ahead.
Yeah, you might want to change the title on that then, just in case, so people don't call in thinking otherwise. But yeah, like even at 154, if you look at his performance against Majimov, there's nothing that Majimov does that makes me think he beats Andrew Zayas. Obviously not Ortiz. I picked him to lose to Ortiz from the very beginning. Boachuk, same thing. Picked him to lose. Murtazalia. Picked him to lose to all these guys. And, Crawford goes life and death with this dude and gets so much fucking credit for it. And there's, like, other fighters that have done a lot of great things, and, like, they just get no credit. I mean, Taraji has a better fucking resume than Terence Crawford. He's fought higher-level competition at their best that went on to do things after losing to Taraji that Crawford can't say the fighters he fought have done. So Ibuki might end up being a two-weight world champ this weekend against Ayala. We'll see. I don't know, it's a tough fight for him, but yeah, and then you obviously have Olasquega, even though he probably should have lost to Kayaguchi. Well, then Taraji knocked out Kayaguchi too. So then some people could argue Kayaguchi should be a three-weight world fucking champion. So yeah, I mean, dude, Porter had daddy issues. He's on his way out the door.
Crawford, you mean?
Brooke was
okay, Porter. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Brooke was dragged down in weight, shot. Didn't do anything except beat up with a shot Amir Khan right after losing to Crawford. Spence, will probably never fight again. If he ever does fight a top-level fight, he'll probably get knocked out in 6 rounds or less. So, yeah, dude, this guy's overrated. I mean, it is what it is. I don't hate the guy. I have nothing bad to say about him, but, like, the guy's just not as good as – he doesn't beat the fucking all-time greats at welterweight. He can't hang with Hearns, Hagler, Hearns, fucking Leonard, Tito Trinidad, De La Hoya, fucking Jose Napoles, Prime Manny, Prime Floyd.
All right, but
Mosley.
You said you didn't want to talk about Crawford. Now you're talking about. You said you didn't want to talk about Crawford.
No, but I'm just saying, but I'm just saying he can't fuck with those guys. I'm just saying in general, in the future shows, we really shouldn't be talking about this guy. There's a lot more going on.
Well, by the way, I don't know about him. I don't know about Taraji being more accomplished. I don't want to get into a debate, by the way. I'm just saying. We'll talk about that in another show.
You can argue that, but I would argue his resume is for sure better if you use proper context. And
we should do that in another show, though, because I am interested in hearing your argument. But I wanted to ask you too. This Saturday, Ibuki versus Ayala. Who do you have in that one?
It's either Ayala decision or Ibuki knockout. It's going to be one of the two. I'll say Ayala, like, close decision. I'm going to say Ayala 115, 113, 116.
I'm looking forward to it. Should be an action fight, whomever wins. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
All right. Well, Dora, we got to move on, man. Anything else?
I'm going to stab you, BDA.
Did you just say you're going to stab me? What?
Stab you, that's all.
You can try. But I got every time I go out, I wear armor, like they do in prison. I got a whole bunch of, I got stacks of phone books here. People don't use them anymore, so I just go around taking them, and I got armor, man. So come in and try to stab me. By the way, I don't carry knives or anything. I got Buffett, Simmons, and Jack Dempsey. Those are my 2 fists. I don't need no fucking knives. Fellas, don't forget to hit the like, and make sure to donate a couple of shekels if you can. It really does help to pay for the phone lines here. Let's go to our phone call here. Let's go to 210. 210, you're on the air. 210, what's on your mind?
What up, BDA? Southpaw.
Oh, Southpaw, what's up, man?
Not much, man. So what's up, man? What's the juice today? You talking about Terence Crawford?
Well, I started talking about Terence Crawford, but there's a whole bunch of things that I want to talk about. I got Mbili Pacheco. That's, the Mbili's promoters say that Pacheco doesn't want it. The Fundora fight, nobody went to see that one in Vegas. It's a whole bunch of things, man.
Yeah, well, the one thing with Crawford, he's a spiteful guy. You remember that lawsuit he had versus Top Rank, which went nowhere. It was bogus. Remember when he was saying he was playing the race card when Top Rank was actually making him the highest paid welterweight in the division overall, the PBC guys. And it wasn't Top Rank's fault that PBC fighters were openly ducking him. But I think he's getting a little butthurt, which I think he had Spence's number regardless of before the crash, after the crash, before the drinking, after the drink. I think Spence was just tailor-made for him. But But the thing is, Spence, that's a Spence fault too, because Spence could have fought him when he was fresher, because it was Spence who wanted to duck him for 5 years, making excuses.
That's right.
And so it's not Crawford's fault that Spence was waiting. And during that waiting period, he got in a wreck, 2 wrecks, and he just continued to kill his liver with alcohol and weed. So it's like that's on Spence too. But I don't know, man. Crawford, I don't know, man. That's why I want Crawford and Canelo just to kind of go away, because I'm going to say it, man. Canelo's resume is overrated too. I mean, it's just these guys get this ego, big heads, and it's like, come on, man. Your 168 run was trash because they were all domestic fucking Brits. The best guy was Caleb Soft Hands Plant. You know what I mean? His last 5 opponents have been all cherry picks: Skull, Berlanga, Munguia, Ryder, 154 Charlo, and he's not knocking out any of them. And then who was it before that? It was Kovalev, where Kovalev was like at his the old ghost of Kovalev, coming off less than 2 months off a fight he almost got knocked out in. And then it was the Bivol loss, and it was it Amir Khan? You know what I mean? So it's not smoke and mirrors. I think he lost the first 2 Triple G fights, and he got the third one off of finally, right? Mm-hmm. But these guys, I mean, everybody's resume can be broken down and criticized. Even Floyd Mayweather, there's nuances. Even when Floyd Mayweather beat Chico Corrales weight drained. He was going to jail. He's going through all this crazy stuff. And then other than that, the guys were always old. They're always weight drained, like Canelo was, or Green. They were, he didn't fight prime, Cotto. He didn't fight prime Mosley, prime Oscar. So, every fighter can be broken down. And I don't know why fighters get so upset. They want the fame, but what comes with the fame? Criticism.
Exactly. That's what I say about celebrities. That's what I say about celebrities. They all want the fame and the attention, but it's a two-edged sword. You want the fame and the attention, you're going to get a lot of eyes on you, and because of that, you're going to get a lot of critics, whether it's rightful criticism or wrongful criticism.
And you need it. And it's needed. I mean, look at the NFL players, the NBA players. They get drugged. They get criticized harshly on ESPN by what's that guy Smith? That crazy dude,
Stephen A. Smith.
But but why is it the toughest guys in the toughest sport are the most sensitive dudes? Like, this is why you can't get good reporters on the ground, because if they ask the honest questions, they get blackballed. You know what I mean? The best in the business, Steve Kim, got blackballed a few times. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem with boxing, man. Like, boxing media used to have power. They used to wield power and have respect. And, but you can't do that no more, because now, these fighters are oversensitive. You say any little thing wrong about them, and, oh, man, you're a quote-unquote hater. Or they try to pull rank and say, oh, if you ain't boxed before. Like, come on, man. Like, you're saying people who watch basketball, if you didn't play on a team, you can't criticize. If you're football, if you didn't get into the NFL, you can't criticize football players. If you didn't, that's right. Crazy. You know what I mean? Like, we're not politicians, but we criticize our politicians. Like, these fighters got to stop being sensitive. That's just my thing.
I agree, man. All right, well, listen, Southpaw, we got to move on here, but thank you for your call, and call back next time. Take it easy, man.
All right, buddy.
All right, fellas, don't forget to hit that like. It really helps us out. Let's go to our phone call here. Let's go to 310. 310, you're on the air. 310, what's on your mind? 310, you're on the air. Did I answer him? Oh, he dropped out, I think. All right. Fellas, don't forget to hit that like. Like I said, it's a call-in show. Make sure to call in. This is your show. You guys get to call in and give us your thoughts on anything and everything in boxing. And in the meantime, I'm just talking here and giving you a little bit food for thought about some of the things that are going on in boxing. And like I was saying, there's a lot going on. Interestingly enough, sticking a little bit or more adjacently, moving on slightly from the Crawford thing. Like I was mentioning earlier, Shakur Stevenson and Terence Crawford are tight. Friendship-wise tight, by the way.
Everything tight.
And Terence Crawford said that him versus Canelo is the biggest fight in boxing, which I can agree with. I think somebody could make an argument, maybe Usyk versus somebody else, but I don't think so. I think this. But he said, look, I think me versus Canelo and then Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis on the undercard would be quite something. In other words, he was saying that would be a great event. Shakur Stevenson disagreed. And let me show you what he said. Shakur Stevenson said, and I like how he keeps referring to Terence Crawford as big brother. Big bro. So it's always been a little weird to me for when they non-blood people, the non-blood related people call each other's brother. I don't know. It seems disingenuous to me. Maybe that's just my own perception here. But this is what Shakur Stevenson had to say, and for some reason I can't find my layout here. Here we go. So again, Terence Crawford said if he had Tank Davis or Shakur Stevenson on the undercard of the Canelo fight, it would be fantastic. So Shakur Stevenson said, "Love you, big brother, but nah. I think me and Cuz fight the biggest fight in the sport. The pay-per-view number is going to be out of this world. Watch what I say." Well, as expected, Shakur Stevenson got lambasted in the comment section. People were saying, like, they were saying, you're not even on pay-per-view. You've never been on pay-per-view and you can't draw. How is that going to be bigger than Canelo versus Crawford? And by the way, let's speak about another, because I've been trying to really get into some of the things that people just spout and repeat without even thinking. One of those big ones was the sanctioning bodies. I remember a couple of years ago when people were saying that Teofimo Lopez wasn't the undisputed lightweight champion because he lacked one belt, whereas Haney had all the belts, therefore he was undisputed. And I remember arguing, it doesn't matter how many belts you have in today's era of diluted belts and the oversaturation of and the presence in boxing. It doesn't matter if you have all the belts or not. Undisputed to me, because I always followed Ring Magazine's lineage ever since 2002 when they started the Ring Magazine Championship, or resurrected it rather. I was on their side, and I was always on par with their logic that, look, there should only be one champion. When the sanctioning bodies can be corrupted and the ratings can be bought, it devalues the meaning of the title, and therefore what they were saying is that the fighter makes the title, not the other way around. Well, a lot of boxing fans didn't think that way a couple of years ago. And it wasn't until Turkey LSG came along and started casting doubt and scaring the sanctioning bodies about their existence. A lot of people on Twitter finally started getting on board. So now I hope people get on board on a couple of other things. And that's one of those is, just because you're on pay-per-view doesn't mean you're a pay-per-view star. People continue to make that mistake. I've heard people say, well, this guy, Benavidez, is a bigger star than Bivol because he's been on pay-per-view. Benavidez, that is. Bivol hasn't. I'm thinking anybody can be on pay-per-view. The metric of judging somebody as a star is not whether they fought on pay-per-view. It's, okay, have they fought on pay-per-view and how many pay-per-views have they done? That's the important thing. How many pay-per-views have they done? How much revenue did they generate? Benavidez has been on pay-per-view how many times now? As a main eventer, the Plant fight, the Andrade fight, and then the Morel fight. And how many pay-per-views did that do collectively? In total, probably didn't even reach 200,000. So, okay, he's fought on pay-per-view. Who cares? So that was one of the arguments where people were making about Shakur Stevenson. And I agree, he's not a big star. But to say that he's not a big star because he hasn't been on pay-per-view and Tank Davis has, that's a bad argument to make. Like I said, anybody can be on pay-per-view. You could put Shakur Stevenson on pay-per-view right now, and he would do horrible numbers, depending on the opponent. That doesn't mean, therefore, that, but he fought on pay-per-view, therefore he's a star. That's not what it means. But yeah, I don't understand where Shakur Stevenson has the goal to think that him versus Tank Davis is a bigger fight than Crawford-Canelo. Canelo brings in, attracts numbers from both countries at the minimum, Mexico and the United States, whereas Shakur Stevenson can't even draw that much in the United States. Ditto for Tank Davis. I mean, at least Tank Davis draws crowds across the United States, which is a difficult thing to do. But when it comes to pay-per-view, there's ulterior numbers. So I don't understand why Shakur Stevenson... Again, it goes back to what I was saying about Crawford at the beginning of this program, that these people, these boxers, especially the fighters from the Crawford sphere, have an inflated sense of worth, overinflated sense of worth. And that's a problem for getting fights made sometimes too as well. By the way, people always talk about Shakur Stevenson being ducked. Just to show you how easily anybody can say, lobby that accusation. Now, William Cepeda's trainer, Panda, who's like an Eddie Reynoso type guy, fat Mexican trainer. He recently said that Shakur Stevenson is the one that recently said that a May fight, from May of this year, I think that's what he was talking about this year, is too early or too close to make the fight. So now people are saying, you see, Shakur's the one that's ducking him. Shakur Stevenson's ducking him. So this whole discussion of he's ducking, this guy's ducking, that guy's ducking, it gets boring very, very quickly. I just want to see the fights happen. And it is important to keep track of who's avoiding whom. But the problem is when people just believe what one party says and then completely disbelieves the other because, I don't like that guy. Narratives abound in the boxing world, let me tell you. Fellas, don't forget to hit that like, hit that likes. Call in. The phone number's right there in the left-hand middle portion of your screen. What else was I gonna? Let me read a couple of comments. I always like reading comments, but can't ever really have the time to read them. Cross-eyed DDPPPP, which I think is Pigeon, says Conbrook washed, Porter washed, Crawford CV resume is the weakest thing ever. I don't think it's the weakest thing ever, but there are certainly holes. Like Southpaw said, anybody can denigrate or criticize another person's record. Now, just because that's true doesn't mean that the criticism is invalid. And I do think there's a lot of space and room to criticize Crawford's resume. But as to say that his resume is the weakest thing ever, if you frame it in front of it's the weakest thing compared to the praise he receives, then yeah, I could agree with that. Because he does get, like I said, his knob gets polished, something awful, by a lot of media members and a lot of fans. Jay says, those Japanese fighters fight to the death. There's some crazy Bushido spirit type dudes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not a fan of fighters crying after a fight, but that guy that Taraji fought in his last fight, he deserved to cry, man, because he gave it everything in the ring and then they just snatched the victory away from him. That was some cold-blooded reptilian stuff. Shout out to Julio, the Real Food TV, who says Crawford is one of the best cherry pickers in boxing history. Solidas T says, so Crawford is a victim's, I think he means victim, but Hispanics do more complaining. I don't understand the question. Earl Stevens says all his best wins are someone's leftovers. IFF says all conjectured, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I don't know what he's referring to. Grim Reaper says phone books and duct tape, baby. We stay ready. There you go. He's team phone books. He agrees with me. Shout out to Grim Reaper. Hard Recall says Tank dares to be great. Well, maybe. Solida says, if Crawford was a Hispanic, you guys would love him, knock it off. I mean, again, that's a bunch of conjecture right there. He doesn't know that. PPP, a.k.a. Pigeon, says, Chavez Jr., the simp, that simp, has a way better resume than Crawford. This is actually true. Sergeant, shout out to Sergeant, says, and Billy wants to fight in Canada and Pacheco wants in L.A. Huh. Well, see, that's a bit of a problem right there, because then it would be about who the bigger draw is. Who's the biggest draw? And Billy has been fighting a bunch of times in Gatineau, Quebec, which is actually a pretty beautiful city. But he doesn't really, he's been fighting in small venues. He hasn't even, as far as I remember, I don't think he's ever filled up the, what do they call it now here? The Pepsi Center. Is it called the Pepsi Center now? I forget. They keep changing the name. Let me fast forward here in some of the comments. Impala hashtag CCD says, Madrinov clowned this dude, talking about Crawford. Where was the skills that pay the bills? Yeah, I was going to make a video about that, about the whole Crawford Madrinov situation, because I'm on Twitter sometimes and people bring that up. Because again, some people say that Crawford's going to easily beat Canelo and that Crawford's way smarter than Canelo. And then when people bring up the Madrimov fight, on Twitter, the counter argument is, well, Crawford won that fight easily. And I go, I wouldn't call a fight where your head is getting repeatedly shaken side to side and back and forth like you're JFK. I wouldn't call that easy. So I don't know. I think people are just saying whatever comes to their mind to try to avoid being wrong. Adrian Villarreal says Benavidez versus Canelo would be the biggest fight in boxing by far. See, that's the other one that came to my mind. Thank you. Yeah, that's the other one that could actually rival Canelo Crawford. But I think based off the fact that Crawford's a top 3 pound-for-pound guy and that some people have him top 1, I think they could use that in the marketing and therefore that could give it the edge in a Canelo fight. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not willing to die on that hill. So you could be right. Maybe Benavidez Canelo is actually bigger. Well, actually, let me continue reading what he says. He says, I don't care about Bud versus Canelo. Bud coming up 3 weight classes and didn't look good at 154. Shake my head. That's a good argument. Quentin Lassiter, shout out to him, says, I lost his comment. Canelo versus Crawford, definitely the big fight, he said. Okay, well, he disagrees there. G Funky Tit says, Hispanics Causing Panics podcast is back. Check us out, folks. Okay, I don't think that's the real G Funky. Celestial Being. I think I encountered this guy in one of my astral projections. Says, all the good fights are being stalled. Why Brian Norman versus Madrimov hasn't been made? Well, it's because they're in different divisions. Theo versus Duran is in limbo. Bivol versus Benavidez has hurdles. And Keyshawn versus Edwin is only possible but not likely. I don't know about all that. Shout out to Sobers. Schneider Sobers. He says, the real reason Crawford is not fighting for a year is because he's cycling on and off for the Canelo fight. No drug testing, huh? That's an interesting point right there. Interesting question, rather. That is an interesting question indeed. Why a year of inactivity? Huh? Especially at his age. Like I said, fellas, don't forget to call in. This is your show. You guys get to talk about whatever you want. Speaking about whatever you want, let me go back to some of the things I had here. Okay, so there were talks about, speaking of David Benavidez, there was a little bit of Benavidez drama with Samson Lukowicz saying that they offered him money. They offered Benavidez money to fight Callum Smith. And when I say they, I think he was referring to the Saudis. So that Benavidez would step aside and let Bivol and Beterbiev fight a third time. And in the meantime, Benavidez would get beaucoup money, that's French for a lot of money, by fighting Callum Smith, who just recently came off a very good win over Okoli. And apparently Lukowicz balked at the idea, saying, nah. First of all, I think he said something along the line. We talked about this in the last Open Lines Friday episode. Essentially, Lukowicz was saying that he would rather have a Benavidez fight Bivol. But then other people were wondering, well, why is he being so adamant about Benavidez not getting paid for a fight that he can win? I mean, that's bizarre. Then we saw Edwin de Los Santos apparently is being offered a fight with Keyshawn Davis. Meanwhile, if that fight occurs at the timetable or near the time that they want, which is, they're saying maybe July or August of this year, that means that de Los Santos would have been inactive for 18 months or will be have been inactive for 18 months. Why was he inactive for 18 months, by the way? And apparently some people said that, I think I heard on Twitter that Lukowicz promotes the guy or manages him or whatever. And again, that just goes to show you Lukowicz doesn't seem... And then Lukowicz also dropped the ball with Benavidez Canelo by asking for TV rights and then making up a whole bunch of stories about the fake offers that always change in numbers, by the way. One day they're offering Canelo 70 mil, then it's 50 mil, then they're offering him $25 in a bus pass. I mean, I don't trust that side at all. And now you're seeing it with Benavidez, Lukowicz costing him money and then saying we're going to be loyal to the WBC, but a couple of months ago, they were blaming the WBC for not making the Canelo fight happen and for supposedly protecting Canelo. So I don't know what's going on with the Lukowicz and David Benavidez camp. If you believe what they have to say, I hope you don't play, that game they do in the streets with cups and they put a pebble in the cup and then they switch it around. That's a scam right there. I hope you don't go into that type of stuff because you sound like you would probably fall for that type of a scam. Be that as it may, that's what it was going on there. And Lukowicz, by the way, said that the Sheik is a boxing rookie promoter. That's what he said. Well, one of Lukowicz's fighters, Sebastian Fundora, recently fought under the PBC banner. And look at the crowd in Las Vegas. This was making the rounds on Twitter. This was at the Michelob Arena, Ultra Arena. Look at that. Look at that turnout. Empty seats. That's more empty seats than there are going to be at my funeral. Let me tell you. Look at that. And there's Fundora with his nondescript opponent. So Lukowicz is saying that the Turki Al-Sheikh is a boxing rookie. He doesn't know how to promote. Meanwhile, he's part of a company, the PBC, that got kicked out of a bunch of networks, has pay-per-views that perform horribly. They've got very few star fighters left. They've like I said, they've been kicked out of numerous networks. Now they're with Amazon, who's apparently is not even giving them money to hold these fights. They're down to 5 events per year when they said it was going to be 12 or something, and that they didn't even get to half of that number. And now look at this. So I don't know, And here's the other thing: people say. And I've seen, again, all I'm telling you guys is what I see on Twitter. I go on Twitter so you guys don't have to. Because really, if for one good comment that you find on Twitter, there's 6 comments that make you go, what are these people talking about? But anyway, one of the arguments I hear whenever people want to defend the PBC is, well, they're the most, now that the PBC fans, because they can't defend the fact that all the networks have turned their backs to the PBC. They can't defend the fact that their fighters are so inactive that fighting twice a year is considered active. And they can't refute the fact that the pay-per-views do have abysmal numbers. They can't refute any of it. So now they're trying to frame it as, well, the PBC is still king in the United States. And their argument is, well, they still do the most events, the most successful events. First of all, let me just show you the picture again. Does that look like a successful event to you? Also, just because they had 2 good pay-per-views in 2023 doesn't mean that they're better than Top Rank. Look, Top Rank, they're looking for another network. After 50 years, they've finally hit a snafu of uncertainty. All right? PBC was on the planet, on the map for 10 years, and they didn't even last anywhere near what Top Rank did. Also, Top Rank at least still has a network where they can consistently put fights. Same thing with Matchroom. Same thing with Frank Warren's promotional company, Queensberry. Same thing with De La Hoya. All these guys have a home where they can put their fighters on. More than just 5 dates per year, that's for sure. So, okay, you did 2 good pay-per-views in 2023, whose numbers I question, by the way. That doesn't make them the kings of American boxing. So everything we were saying about the PBC turned out to be right near the money, if not right on the money. And I don't understand why I don't understand why Benavidez is. I like Benavidez as a fighter, man. He's must-see TV, and it pains me. It really pains me to see him with an organization that doesn't know what they're doing. They're very good at killing momentum. That's one thing they're good at. Let's go to our phone call here. Let's go to 619. 619, you're on the air. 619, what's on your mind? 619, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello, Mr. BDA.
Is this Gonzalo or Jose? You guys sound alike.
Gonzalo.
Gonzalo, how you doing, man?
Gonzalo. Hey, what's up, Mr. BDA? Just got back from work. Hey, how's it going?
Good. Hope you're doing fantastic as well, man. What's on your mind?
No, you tell me, man. Just want to get the ball rolling here with the calls. Well, what can I say?
Well, okay, Fundora, they're saying Fundora versus Xander Zayas. That could, I think the WBO, or I forget which organization, is mandating that. How do you see that one going?
Well, he's a tall guy. In the beginning, when they were really pushing for Xander Zayas as the next future Puerto Rican superstar, I thought, this guy, he must be the goods, the next Miguel Cotto. But, in the beginning, like most fighters, when they're faced against subpar opposition, he was getting the knockouts. Now he's getting bigger and fighting at a higher weight class. He's not getting the knockouts. So his power is questionable. And to the point where, can you say that this is really punch hard enough, where, he can compete against the other power punchers at the 154-pound division? I don't know. Probably that's the biggest question. I think he's been rocked before, too. He's got good boxing ability, but I don't know if he's the next Puerto Rican sensation. And I think most likely, a guy like Fundora would beat him. But then again, he can still box, but can he crack, just like the other guys? I don't know.
Yeah,
there's an interesting fight.
You mentioned Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto, that's the thing people forget is that I don't know if they forget, but I forgot how much of a monster he was at lightweight and 140 pounds. The last thing I remember of Cotto is, the later years in his career where he was really relying more on his boxing skills than anything else. But you're right, though. When he was on the come-up, he was a monster. Whereas Zayas on the come-up is very good technical boxer, quick, not incredibly fast. But so there's nothing that really attracts the eye. You know what I mean, Gonzalo? There's not that flash. But Tim Tszyu is a guy who can crack, but he's not the biggest puncher either against top opposition. And he was having his way with Fundora before the cut. So would Zayas really need punching power to beat Fundora?
I don't know. That's a good fight. If he beats Fundora, that at least tells you that he can compete. If you match him up carefully, and who knows? I mean, that's an interesting fight.
There you go, man. Well, yeah, man, that's all I've got for now. I still have a couple of things to talk about, though, later on. So maybe if you want to jump on the panel later, if you're still around, I'll give you a call, all right, man?
Okay, cool.
All right, Gonzalo, Good to hear from you, man. Take it easy, man.
All right, yeah. Cool video. Bye.
Yeah, we got to get to some more boxing talk here. Don't forget to call in. Fellas, the phone number is right there in the left and middle portion of your screen. I'm going to put it up here. Marquee, there you go. Look at that. Look at the size of that number. Almost as big as I'm not going to go there. But yeah, call in, fellas. Call in. Make sure to call in, give us your thoughts on anything and everything boxing. Now, I think that all this boxing talk might not be stimulating people to call in. It might not be arousing your interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into one of the subjects here that could be a little bit more spicy. So what I wanted to talk about was Bill Haney. Bill Haney is doing his, what I was talking about with Crawford and all those guys talking on Twitter. Bill Haney, who's in his 50s or even 60s, I think, won't stop yapping on Twitter. So he had this to say recently. He said, oh, come on, I can see. Okay, there we go. Mexican fighters get praise for effort. They just have to fight, and they get love. Black fighters have to not just win, but win big. And only then they might get a little respect. What do you guys think about that? Is Bill Haney right? Do Mexicans have a lower bar of merit compared to, and he said black fighters. He didn't even say American fighters. Well, he went right straight to the race thing, Afro-Anglo. So I may say this. I don't see, in the last 15 years, I've seen a shift move from networks and fans of overhyping Afro-Anglo fighters. Not to cast too many aspersions, but Southpaw called in earlier and said that Canelo fought a bunch of domestic fighters. So what he was talking about was domestic British fighters. And I've heard that type of criticism, denigration before of foreign fighters. The term Eurobum was consistently used in the 90s to refer to European fighters who had undefeated records but who had never really fought anybody of note. But in the last couple of years, we've seen globalization get stronger, and by extension, more and more fighters there's cross-training, there's cross-promotions, there's more money involved and being put on certain programs. So the world is growing in terms of boxing skill and boxing quality, to the point where I've seen a lot of undeserving Afro-Anglo fighters get a lot of praise. And that's why I think I remember it was Thunderdome and Precise who used to start calling people Ameribums. Because if you want to denigrate guys from other countries just because they're not from America, and because they're overprotected and overhyped, there's plenty of those type of fighters in the United States. And I've seen, the king of Ameribombers was Adrian Broner. Remember back in 2012 when they were saying that he was Floyd Mayweather with power? And after he beat Antonio DeMarco, Ring Magazine put him number 6 pound for pound? I think initially they put him number 5 pound for pound. And then when people started saying, when too many people complained, they bumped him down to number 6. That guy turned out to be an Ameribomb. But you don't see a lot of people using that term, Ameribum, to refer to him. Why? Oh, well, maybe is it because he's American? I don't know. Now, in terms of what Bill Haney said about Mexican fighters not having to do more than just try and they still get a lot of love, I've heard that argument before, that criticism, and my argument remains the same. My counter-argument remains the same. Mexican fighters, Mexican fight fans tend to be a little bit more educated than the average boxing fan, but not by much what you can call them experts. But they know a little bit more about history, and they know what they like. And they do support their fighters. But which fighters do they support? A lot of people, especially Afro-Anglos, seem to think that Mexicans will just root for any Mexican. In fact, you saw one commentator, one guy in the chat earlier who said that if Crawford was Mexican, we Mexicans would love him and we would praise him. That's not true. Just winning isn't enough. Give you an example, a couple of examples. Miguel Canto is one of the best boxers of all time, Mexican fighters of all time, and considered one of the best bantamweights of all time. Flyweights. He didn't get a lot of love, and even today, when people talk about the best Mexican fighters of all time, he's in the Mount Rushmore of top 5 minimum, top 5 best Mexican fighters of all time. Very few people mention him. Why? Because he was fighting in a lower weight division, and he wasn't a big puncher. So Mexican fight fans didn't really respect him, but other people from other countries would have you believe that Mexicans just will love anybody because they're so desperate for a winner, they'll root for whomever. That's not true. Let's go to a couple of more recent examples. Miguel El Títere Vázquez was on pulling a lot of upsets at one point. Back in the 2000s and early 2010s, people didn't want to see him fight. Mexicans didn't really bat an eyelash towards him. Why? Because he was boring. He had an ugly, gangly style. That's why they call him the puppet, because he looked like one of those marionettes that you see in the streets, carnivals and all that. And he couldn't crack. He would just run around the ring. He was a back foot bitch. Mexicans don't like that. In fact, nobody likes that. I see a lot of projection here when Bill Haney says, these guys would love him if Mexicans support anybody. That's not true. I do see that from some Mexicans, and I do see that from some Afro-Anglos, where they'll prop up a guy just because, they're culturally aligned or racially aligned. And by the way, another example is a recent example, Ray Vargas. Ray Vargas is boring. Tall guy, difficult to look at both facially and in terms of stylistically as a boxer. And he was an undefeated guy at one point. You know, you would think, according to Bill Haney, that we would all have been praising him, but we didn't. Because he had an ugly style. We don't have time for that shit. Whether it's an Afro-Anglo back foot bitch, and a Mexican back foot bitch, Puerto Rican back foot bitch, a back foot bitch remains a back foot bitch. So I don't understand. But then again, Bill Haney just is in the custom of just blabbering on Twitter without really thinking about what he's saying. So that's what's going on there with him. So no, I think his comments are out of line and uneducated. Interestingly enough, another comment from Bill Haney that struck my interest was earlier today, he was putting a video of Juan Manuel Marquez saying that Devin Haney should definitely control the testing for the for the Garcia rematch because of what occurred with the Austrian. And so Bill Haney had this to say. He said, "Only trolls backed by fools will disagree. Boxing is a dangerous multi-billion-dollar business. No way around lawsuits. No sport has more fatalities. This ain't the streets, nor do the street rules apply. Ask families that lost someone." So he's saying that cheating in boxing is way more egregious and dangerous than in other sports, which I can agree with. However, so in other words, what he's illustrating is that, hey, boxing is a dangerous sport and cheaters shouldn't be taken lightly. And I agree. I think all forms of cheating should be looked at the same. In other words, I think we should all rally against cheaters. And that's whether it's clinching or whether it's cheating via PEDs. And that's the title, one of the subjects of my recent video at BDA Clips in the build-up to the Cepeda-Farmer fight rematch. Farmer was doing a lot of clinching in the first fight, and he never got a point deducted for it. So my thing is, I agree with Bill Haney that cheating shouldn't be taken lightly. And I say that across the board. So we should be calling out people who cheat with PEDs and people who cheat in the ring. And his son, Devin Haney, does a lot of clinching. So I hope Bill Haney stays on the same parameter here, on the same level, and says, you know what, yeah, clinching might not be killing people, but it could be killing careers. Because one guy has a disadvantage of not being able to fight from the clinch, and the referees allow that cheating, but then when the fighter tries to wrestle away from the clinch, most oftentimes referees will warn them for it. So, I mean, I don't know. But the thing that made me, people started cooking, as they say, Bill Haney in the comments, because they started pointing out how Bill Haney repeatedly said that he was sending his son Devin over to kill Ryan Garcia. He said it multiple times. Kill or be killed, he said. His mother, he even involved, Ryan Garcia's mother said, hey, now you're going to have to watch, something along those lines, he said. And he said repeatedly about the murder thing. Somebody then replied in the Twitter section, comment section, said, oh, but that's just talk. That's normal in a violent sport. And it made me wonder, okay, when he said normal, and again, there's a type of nuance you can't get out of Twitter, so I'm asking rhetorically here. Obviously, the person's not going to answer, but it made me wonder, what did that person mean by, well, that type of talk is normal? When he says normal, is he talking about, is that just another word for it occurs regularly, that it's a common occurrence? Or is he saying normal as in it's morally acceptable? First of all, the whole thing of, well, it occurs in boxing, or it's a regular occurrence. I can't recall the last time Usyk said he wanted to kill somebody. Same thing with Lomachenko, same thing with Inoue, same thing with Canelo. Crawford, for all his talking, I don't think he's ever said. Tito and Ernesto Tito Mercado, who's one of the few trash talkers who I enjoy and somewhat respect, for all his smack talk, has never actually heard, unless I'm mistaken, maybe I missed it, but I don't think I've ever heard him say he was going to kill somebody. So saying that you're going to kill somebody in a sport that does indeed suffer a lot of fatalities is a serious thing. Whether they mean it or not, it's the symbolism of it, that, hey, you're really going to kill the guy? You talk to most fighters who murder somebody, they're actually devastated afterwards. It's not a good thing to go through, killing somebody in the ring. And so for Bill Haney to be bringing this up, and then he actually inferred that his son was going to kill Garcia a bunch of times, I don't know, it doesn't sound good, right? It's kind of hypocritical. But also that person who said, well, it's normal in boxing, again, is it a normal occurrence or regular occurrence? No, it isn't. Second of all, like I said, should it be said in the first place? I don't think so. I mean, I understand most fighters would rather die in the ring, but that's not their first choice. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is they'd rather die in the ring than to have a fight stopped. Some of them really do believe that. But their first choice is not, hey, I want to go in there to die. It's a big thing that happens. It's a serious thing that happens, deaths in the ring. Something that cannot be stopped at this point. It's going to happen every year. This year, just this year, as we're talking, someone's going to die in that ring. Maybe not in the big grand stage, although you never know. Knock on wood, hopefully not. But someone's going to die. You know, that's the agreement that we as boxing fans have entered into, that this is a sport that we're going to have to accept the fact that someone's going to get killed. So Bill Haney, who has a son who took a severe, he witnessed his son getting beat like Jesus in Passion of the Christ, shouldn't be saying this lightly. He watched his son get battered, almost failed to get up from that second knockdown, shit his pants in the meantime, or in the process. I don't know what to say about this, guys. That's why I'm hoping you guys call in and let us know what you think about these comments. Let's go to a phone call here. Let's go to 470. 470, you're in the air. 470, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, man? My name is, it's Ghost.
All right, Ghost, what's up, man?
What's up, man? I was calling you earlier and you had me waiting for a while, so fuck you for that. And, and fuck Bill Haney and all that, dude, because, I forgot that one black chick, she won. She beat, Sky Nicholson over the weekend. Fucking, so there's that one thing for black people saying, like, oh, they gotta do all this spectacular shit. I only think that chick won. Like, I think Sky really beat her, to be honest. Tank, he doesn't really do much in that ring, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just fucking fucks around half the time. Let's see, Mayweather, he ended up, after he got his face broken that one time, he started, like, just fucking running around people at the end of his career.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know, bro. Just, there's a lot of shit that they do that they were like, oh, let's do this and that. I don't know, bro. Anyways, I appreciate you answering. I'm out.
All right. Thank you for your call, and sorry to keep you waiting, man. Won't happen next time. All right. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so make sure to go. Yeah, I didn't see that women's fight, but I heard about it. I think it was a big, somewhat of a big event. Not for me, but for a lot of people. Let's go to the comment sections here. Don't forget, fellas, phone numbers right there in the left and middle portion of your screen. I'm going to be on the air for at least another 20-something minutes. In fact, I'm going to invite a couple of people. So any of the regulars want to jump on the panel. Jeez Louise. Let me take a drink of caffeine here. I need to wake up a little bit. By the way, I was talking about that with the guys on the off the air, the VC a couple of days ago on Discord, and I was asking, I'm genuinely curious how many, I want to do a little BDA census, how many people drink caffeine and what type of caffeine? And the other question that I would have is, what's the cutoff point during the day for you? Because, usually they say that after 5 p.m. you should stop drinking caffeine, because then otherwise it screws up with your sleep rhythms. But I don't know, man. I sometimes I need to wake up a little bit. So Isaac Bermudez says, Didi, Billy, Haney, Antoinette. Is that his actual name? Is that his birth name? His official name? Isaac Bermudez says, Bill Haney's middle name is Antoinette. I don't believe that. Come on. Josh says, watch the fights in the astral realm using the third eye, godlike powers. Legend has it that they can see the crown on King Haney's head as he fights. All right. Solidas says, I feel like Mexicans are jealous of black fighters. They view us as their biggest threat because they know we are the best. So he says, I feel like Mexicans are jealous of fighters. They view us. Well, who's us, though? I don't know. Is Solidas a fighter? The Quack says that's normal for their community. Shriham via Habra Sports Media says, cross-eyed Didi, my third eye open and my 7 chakras aligned. Well, good for you. Cross-eyed Didi says, with a Jameson, yes. What the fuck are they talking about? Shouldn't have brought up the whole astral realm thing. Reverend Pickle says, need to be careful choosing words like that. I remember G-Man saying something similar to Nigel Benn. Oh, talking about killing and all that? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, unless you're a sociopath, and again, listen, who am I to be diagnosing Kovalev as that? But I remember Stu used to say that, most people, when they murder somebody in the ring, they're upset over it. They're never the same afterwards. So especially after the in the immediate fight, the first immediate fight after the death. He said, meanwhile, Kovalev, he returned because I know people forget Kovalev actually killed somebody in the ring. It never seemed to affect him. We never heard anything about him being in a depression, whatever. He just came back and, Stu characterized it as saying, it's almost as if Kovalev just said, all right, who's next? Who's my next victim? I mean, I don't know. I guess everyone's different. Josh says if Ryan wasn't fat and coked out of his mind, he could have killed Haney. That's what Jimmy said right after the fight. The day after the fight, everyone was talking about the victory and all that. Jimmy was actually quite critical of Garcia, saying he looked like he was out of shape, and it's true. He would throw 2-3 punches. If he threw more than 3 punches at a time, the guy would be tired. Garcia, that is, not Jimmy. And it's true. It turned out that Bradley said that he has it on good authority that the reason why Garcia took the Austrian wasn't to gain superpowers, but because he wasn't training properly. He needed to lose weight quickly, rapidly. Why? Because he wasn't training properly. And that's why I'm very dubious when people say, oh, Garcia's going to beat Rolly Romero. I don't know. I don't trust Ryan Garcia. I think he's a very volatile personality, unbalanced, mentally unbalanced. And the same goes for his work ethic. I don't think he's a hard worker when it comes to training. Quack says, that's a ridiculous statement. The sport is dangerous enough. I agree. Let's go to let's go back to the phone calls here. Let's go to 323. 323, you're on the air. 323, what's on your mind?
Fuck you, BDA.
Oh,
fuck you, BDA.
Let me bring up the beeping again. Where's the beeping? That's
God
not it.
fucking damn you, BDA.
Ah, come on with the language, man. Come on.
Well, the other guy did it, and you didn't beep him. What the fuck?
Well, he had a good reason because I kept him waiting.
Oh, yeah, he had a...
You little weasel!
No, I'm not a weasel. Who said that?
You fucking weasel!
What's up,
I saw that fucking fight. I saw that woman fight because, honestly, who doesn't want to dump inside of Sky Nicholson? But
that's true. That's true.
Really, no, I thought it was pretty close. I didn't think it was like Sarah Brown didn't dominate her. I think it was just more the fact that Sky she just didn't throw enough. But a lot of the punches landed on the gloves, on the elbows, anyway. Whatever. It was one of those things that they're blowing out of proportion, like, oh, she got dominated, like fucking relax, dude.
Language,
the fight was a split decision. Like, shut the fuck up. I would have been like, if it was like, equivalent to like a 116, like 110, some shit, then I would be like, okay, yeah, she dominated, and we all saw it. But that didn't happen. Okay, so everybody just has to fucking relax. Anyway, are you gonna let me fucking talk? God damn you!
I said,
where's the beeping?
Coffee!
Where's the beeping?
People are talking about coffee in the chat. That's how much you turned them off with all your salty language. You're talking about coffee.
You want it to get saltier?
No,
saltier. You can turn it up a few notches. God damn it. Anyway, no, I'm tired I am really fucking tired of this. I'm not even really paying attention to it anymore. The Ryan Garcia and Bill Haney and Devin Haney, like, I'm just exhausted with it now. Like, these people don't fucking even matter.
Oh,
I just want to see some good fights.
What do you mean by these people?
They just don't matter. I'm with you on the you not trusting Ryan Garcia. He's volatile. I don't trust him at all. I don't think. Okay, if he trains, what's the best case scenario? Like, what was his best win when he trained? And I think we all agree it was maybe Luke Campbell, but Luke Campbell was on his last, leg.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was his retirement fight. So when I see retirement fights, I don't really consider them like huge wins. It's the fighter had just a little bit left in him. Maybe there were a lot of problems in the ring, but people take these retirement fights as these big feats. Like, oh, he took out the former champion, or he took out this guy who was a top contender at one point. But it's their retirement fight. It's like, it's like when Sean Porter, when Crawford beat Sean Porter, that was his retirement fight. Like, did he have much stuff in the tank mentally and physically? I don't think so, or else he wouldn't have retired. He would have come back and fought again and probably kicked somebody's ass, but he didn't have it anymore. So it's kind of like that,
Right.
Yeah, we've seen retirement fights in the past, and I always get a little. I don't take those comments very seriously when people, give praise to the fighter for kicking that guy's ass and he was once something. But so I think that best case scenario, Ryan Garcia trains his ass off. He gets back in the ring, and let's say he has a good performance with Rolly. But if it's a subpar performance and they go several rounds, and on Brian Garcia training hard, then I still feel he's a C-level fighter. I don't really think he's very good. I've never thought he was very good. He's always fought lower opposition. I mean, Haney has a slightly better resume than he does. But then again, like, he fights smaller guys. So there's an asterisk besides every one of these fighters. Except, I will say this, except for Teofimo, he's fought some good ones and he's had some good wins. I don't know, man. I don't know. The only fight I'm really excited about is the Barboza and Teofimo fight. That's the only one I really want to see, because I'm hoping that Barboza beats the shit out of Teofimo, and his dad just sits in the corner yelling at him to knock Barboza out, and then Barboza just outboxes him. I don't even think Barboza's that great. He's on a hot one right now. I will say that he's on a good winning streak. He's been fighting some pretty good fighters. He's been fighting better caliber of fighters. He's kind of creeping up there, and I hope he can keep that momentum going. But he's also like 31 or something. I don't know how much longer 33. He can keep it going. If he keeps it going, I hope he wins it. Yeah, I mean, that's he's got. I hope he wins a couple of titles and unifies some titles, and that might be it for him. But I hope so, man. I hope he does something, and I hope he embarrasses Teofimo, because that guy needs to be embarrassed. He needs to be humbled.
Why is that?
And I hope
like that.
I just hope these guys listen. No matter what happens with this guy, he just doesn't get humbled. Like his loss to Kambosos, I thought it would be a humbling experience for him, and it wasn't. This guy just came back, and his dad just had to open his mouth again, and both of them. And I just fucking can't stand those guys. I can't stand those guys. I can't stand the Haneys, and I can't stand Garcia and his dad. They just fucking suck. They're bad for the sport. I don't mind a few people that are talking shit and trying to stir the pot. But when almost every fighter that's a name at the 140 pound or 147 division are just a bunch of shitbags, then it just gets old, man.
This is what I think about your language.
Fucking nauseating.
It's nauseating. I don't understand why you got to talk like that. No, but listen, Teofimo Lopez is a guy that's another dude that, like you said, it's incredible how he was humble. He should have been humbled by the Kambosos thing, and then he made up a bunch of theories that everyone was against him. It's ridiculous. Listen, I got to go, man. Don Madrazos, but great points. Good points here. Call back next time, right, man?
See you, man.
All right, take it easy, man. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of unlikable guys in boxing, and some people would say that that's good because, you see, people are going to pay to watch him lose, but I've never really believed that whole thing of people paying to watch a guy lose. I've never really seen that. Let's go on a phone call here. Let's go to 669. 669, you're on the air. 669, what's on your mind?
Yo, what's up, Mr. BDA?
What's up?
Let's try to keep it classy, yeah?
You don't got to tell me, man, but yeah, go ahead.
And in that spirit, I want to say something here.
Uh-oh. Sounds serious.
Thinks these nogs protest too much.
I'm going to let you talk. I'm not going to fucking get in this way.
No, but dude, man. What's up with these, like, freaking Euro... What did you call them? Amero bums?
Right.
What's wrong with these? And it's mostly black people, right? It's mostly black fighters. Like, these guys are so fucking unlikable. It's unreal, bro. It's horrible for the sport because who do black people have to, like, support? Like, Crawford's the only one that's kind of likable.
Oh, what about Jaron Ennis?
That guy's a duck.
Oh, okay, yeah, I forgot about that. You're right, yeah.
He don't fight nobody. Bro. I think he's fighting my Uber driver next.
Well, just to show you how it works both ways, because earlier I was saying how Mexicans, again, the misconception that a lot of foreigners make about Mexicans is that we'll root for anybody. We're just so desperate for a winner that we'll just root for anybody, but it's untrue. Like I said, I mentioned a couple of examples. The same applies to Afro-Anglos. Stephen Fulton is a heck of a fighter. Yeah, I guess you could argue he's a little bit overconfident, but he's not a trash talker. The worst thing he did was, and it wasn't even him directly, was his trainer in the build-up to the Inoue fight, where they started complaining about the gloves or whatever, I don't know. But he's fought everybody. He told the PBC, screw you, I don't want to fight Figueroa again. I want to fight Inoue. He went all the way to Japan.
Fulton's cool.
So cool. Yeah, but that's the thing. Fulton's cool. Nobody watches him. He even lamented the fact in an interview where he said, Philly don't like me. He says Philadelphia, his own city doesn't like him. So, yeah.
They don't like him because he ain't representing the culture.
What do you mean by that?
Culture.
What do you mean by that? Because I don't even know what the culture
is.
What
do you think? The culture is what, like beating women, being in rap, doing all that stuff.
Come on. You think that's what they mean when they say that culture?
Shit talking.
So you're saying that when they talk about the culture, they talk about the negative aspects.
Being shifty. Yeah. He's like a stand-up. He looks like a stand-up guy, and they don't like that.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I still say, that the styles has something to do with it. Fulton's not exactly the most exciting guy. But it is true that you look at the guy who receives the most praise. You look at the guy who receives the most praise, and from that side of the community, and it's Tank Davis. A guy who ran over a pregnant lady and then fled the scene when she asked for help. I mean, I don't know. But, so what do you think about... another guy that's unlikable, Teofimo Lopez. The previous caller just said that. What do you think about Teofimo Lopez?
Right now. Teofimo Lopez?
Who are you talking to?
I don't like his dad specifically. But I do got to give him credit. He has fought a lot of people.
Who are you talking to in the background? I keep hearing you talking in the background. Let me just tell you something. When you call BDA, all your attention is on BDA, all right? Nothing else. But go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I'm talking to one of my 3 Ukrainian escorts.
All right. Well, I'll make an exception then, but go ahead.
Okay. I said I do like him. He's all right, but I hate his dad, and I like that he's fought a lot of people. You got to give him credit for that.
All right.
And you got to give people credit, man. And it's nothing wrong about, I don't have a particular disdain against black fighters. Like, my favorite fighter is George Foreman. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Big George. This grilled... I actually am using the grill, no joke.
I've never used the grill. I've never used any of his products. How's the meat? How's the meat taste when you use it?
It's pretty chill. It's pretty chill. I mean, I like the meat. I like meat. No pause.
Like meat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All right, well, there you go, man. So, it's a tricky situation whenever anybody brings up race. But I mean, the people who bring up the race the most are the ones who say that everyone's racist. So, it goes both ways. I don't know.
Last thing, I want to say one more thing. Why? I don't know if it's why do they not like being black? Why do they always have to make everything about being race? It's always going to be about race, bro, with these people.
In my experience, and again, this is just, I don't have no hardcore evidence for this. I mean, again, we're just speculating here, but the people that scream racism the most, usually then conflate it to, they have to bring up what their race has performed and accomplished. So then it essentially makes you wonder about whether they're talking about, everyone's racist because we're so awesome. That's one of the things I've seen, and makes me wonder how conceited some of these people might be, that they think, the only reason why anybody could hate us is because they're jealous. They're envious of us. I'm thinking that might not be necessarily the case, if indeed there is that the amount of racism that they claim there is. So makes you wonder. But anyway, listen, Cole.
It sounds very, very suspicious.
It sounds very gay too. But anyway, listen, we got to move on. Shout out to you.
Hey,
Enjoy your escorts, and don't go too rough on them like Patrick Bateman, all right?
I just might.
Come on.
I just might be just BDA.
All right. Who am I to get in the
way
of
thanks,
love?
Man. Keep the show.
Thank you, man. Take it easy.
Take care.
Did you guys hear that in the background? He was telling one of them, get on your knees so Sabrina can see your asshole. Did anyone else hear that? Because I think that's what I heard him saying to one of the prostitutes. All right. Shout out to that caller. Fellas, don't forget to hit the like. It really helps us out. LL says, I hear someone is jealous, Mr. BDA. No, I'm not jealous. By the way, I think 3 escorts is overkill, which is probably what this guy's going to do to them, kill them. All right, let's go to our phone call here. Let's go to 642. 642, you're on the air. 642, what's on your mind?
Hey, BDA, it's Fightball Talk from New Zealand. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, man. What's up?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, man.
Oh, sweet. Cool. Just some technical difficulties. Fightball Talk calling from New Zealand. Thanks for having me on, as always.
No problem.
I've only just tuned in, so was there a recent statement from Terence Crawford that where he's like crying victimhood, or is it just down to because I've got a few thoughts on this. I feel I've had a lot of respect for Terence Crawford, the way he's handled his career, but I think the way that he's carried himself since beating Errol Spence, it's been disappointing, but also just the way he's acted is it's frustrating because, yes, there was a period in time where he was frozen out by the PBC, and, that's always been very disappointing. But the fact that he did nothing with the stardom that he got after he destroyed Errol Spence and has just sat out waiting for the Canelo Alvarez fight, it's taken him forever to vacate his light middleweight title, which he never intended on defending. And meanwhile, him acting like Ron Ennis does nothing for his career, and yet they're just sitting out waiting for Canelo when it's a huge weight jump, and Canelo does have other options. It's been disappointing. So, but is there something Terence Crawford said where he was crying victimhood that you're referring to, or?
Well, it's a statement that he's made a couple of times where he says that, first of all, his self-professed greatness. He keeps saying that to Teofimo Lopez and Eddie Hearn and anybody else that disagrees with him. He says, enjoy and respect greatness when you see it. So he's calling himself great, which isn't the worst of his transgressions. But also, one thing he was saying recently in Ring Magazine was that he says, everyone's always doubted me. Everyone's always against me. I'm thinking that's part of being a top boxer. You get a lot of eyes on you. There's going to be some people that doubt you. There's nothing. I've never seen an disproportionate amount of criticism towards Terence Crawford. So I was just pointing out how that indicates that this guy is conceited and way too self-involved in his own self-professed greatness. He also said that people who criticize him are people who have never boxed. So he's making that assumption. What else did he say? He said that, that throughout his career, he's always been... people have always said that he's too small, that people are too strong, or that his opponents hit too hard. And I'm thinking, you look back at all of his fights since he beat Gamboa, I think in all of those fights, he's been the favorite with the odds makers. So again, that's not representative of a guy who's being doubted.
Yeah, Crawford. Yeah, this is the frustrating part about Crawford. I mean, when he sued Bob Arum claiming racial bias, we all know Bob Arum is a scumbag, and we all know Bob Arum is racist. But the thing that I just could not wrap my head around is that Terence Crawford voluntarily re-signed with Bob Arum. So I thought, how can you re-sign with a guy and then sue him years later? And also Bob Arum did officially try to make the Errol Spence fight. And yeah, him saying, if you criticize me, you criticize greatness, you hate on greatness, like everyone's doubted me, etc. Like, Crawford hasn't exactly received the Sugar Ray Leonard treatment, but he hasn't been treated, or mistreated, I should say, by the industry like Marvin Hagler was. That's just one example of some guy who really was always the underdog. So yeah, Crawford is he's made a career off of proving doubters wrong, but that goes for any fighter because every fighter is criticized. And what the previous callers brought up, fighters like Lopez and Garcia and Devin Haney, I mean, they're all guilty. I wouldn't say guilty. They all do the same thing. They act like any criticism is hater talk, and it's on one hand, I love the defiance from fighters because that's where we get the best out of fighters when they look to defy the naysayers, etc. But them acting like the world is against them is ridiculous, and Crawford's guilty of that as well. With the kind of things you brought up, it's all about how everybody's against me and I'm just going to prove them wrong, etc., etc. Like, it seems like this has kind of become a bit of an excuse to do whatever he wants, not fight Ron Ennis, not defend his light middleweight title against the other top fighters at 154, and yeah, it's I mean, every fighter has to deal with naysayers. It's just a fact of life. But
exactly.
Yeah, he does take it too far. But all the fighters, the guy. Yeah, sorry.
No, I said exactly. I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. But Garcia, Lopez, and Haney, they're all guilty of it far more so. I mean, Lopez, I'm a fan of him, but the way he and his father act, like if you don't agree with everything they say, you're haters. I mean, that's crazy. But Devin and Bill Haney do it the same, and Brian Garcia is just a very emotional child. So it's all like, unfortunately, we see it a lot just in our society in general these days. If you don't agree with me on everything, you're a hater. Ridiculous.
That's true. There's a lot of jerk-offs in boxing, in the like it's just in lightweight alone, in the lightweight division. And I just want to, anything else you want to say there, Fight Sports, before we move on?
Not really, man. That's it. Thanks for having me on. If I could just plug my channel, Fight Sport Talk, and yeah, always enjoy calling in BDA. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, man. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, I was going to say something about... Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, that I just want to make it clear here that the whole Crawford thing is, I know how it's going to work. Some people are going to say, oh, BD is a hater. I'm opening my dislike for Crawford. He's a dislikable character. Hate is something, though, that I reserve for, you know the type of people I'm talking about, real evil people. So it's nothing, it's not like I spend the days going, oh, fuck Terence Crawford. He's just, hey, I don't root for the guy. What do you want from me? I'll pay to watch him fight, though. So in that sense, well, I mean, depending on the fighter, obviously, and the opponent. So in that sense, I guess if it ever got to him that, hey, this guy's one of your haters, hey, I'm paying you to watch you fight. Come on. I can't hate you that much. And also, it's not like Terence Crawford ran over a pregnant woman and then fled the scene when she asked for help. So in that sense, in my totem pole of dislikable fighters, Crawford's not even near the top. Just that lightweight division alone, like Fight Sports Dog said, there's a whole bunch of much more dislikable characters in there. Real quick, that the phone lines are still open, fellas. I'm still going to be here for another couple of minutes, so make sure to call in, give us your thoughts on everything. Speaking of, again, the themes we started off with was Crawford and how he feels besmirched, and he talks about being a victim. Nobody in boxing really has it all that easy. Even if they have a big-time promoter behind them, pushing them. I'll give you an example. Livingston Bramble, rest in peace, just recently passed away. In fact, I think he passed away in the same day as George Foreman. Same day as George Foreman. So he's in the unfortunate position of having somebody way more famous than him die on the same day. And so people sort of overlook that. Enough has been said about George Foreman. Rest in peace, champ. He was a great this, he was a great that, of course. Livingston Bramble, though, not getting much love. And I was reading a piece that the Ring Magazine did about him. And they were talking about, by the way, for people that don't know, Livingston Bramble upset Ray Boom Boom Mancini, who at the time was undefeated and at the time was a big attraction. And Mancini came in there and beat him in a very entertaining fight and then repeated the feat in a rematch. But then afterwards, he fell into some tough times, lost a bunch of decisions, and I think he actually ended up fighting deep into his 40s. I remember back in the 2000s, I remember reading in Ring Magazine that the guy was still fighting. I think he was 46 or something. I said, whoa, what? And we're not talking Bernard Hopkins here, still being able to compete against younger guys at 46. This is a guy that was fighting about, 5 times a year, I think, or thereabouts, and losing as much or as many times. So it was a bit of a sad tale of him having to continue boxing. But the interesting thing about Livingston Bramble that I was unaware of reading their article in Ring Magazine and ringtv.com was that he fought Obakar in 1991. I didn't know that. And I certainly didn't know that it was a close fight that people felt should have gone to Livingston Bramble. So Obakar got the decision. And then Obakar got another so-called gift decision against Daryl Coley afterwards, a couple of years later. So for people that don't know, Obakar is a guy who had the unfortunate luck of fighting, being in the same generation, the welterweight generation, with Ike Cortez, Felix Trinidad, and De La Hoya, all of whom beat him. So whenever people bring up Obakar, they say, oh, he's one of the best welterweights to have never won, a world title. Even in that era, in the 90s, of 3 world titles. But even then, you see people describe him as, oh, he was unlucky, he was unfortunate, but he got 2 gift decisions. One against Daryl Coley, one against Livingston Bramble. So I bring that up to say that nobody who's affiliated with some big-time promoter or even like an above-average promoter is ever completely besmirched. Some guys get a little bump. Sometimes they'll get 2 bumps. A questionable decision go their way. That's the way it goes. Muhammad Ali had the same thing. Pernell Whitaker, who a lot of people say, oh, he got robbed against Ramirez and against Chavez. He got a gift decision. Or was fortunate to get some decisions against Buddy McGirt and against Wilfredo Rivera. So, like I said, it goes both ways. No one's ever completely clean. Nobody walks away from boxing completely clean or without a little help in between. And it was quite revelatory doing that episode of Pernell Whitaker's career review with Chief. The episode is on Patreon for free, by the way. I mean, it's still on YouTube, but it's edited because we had to take some parts out due to copyright things. But it's completely unedited over at Patreon, so go check it out. Chief is a much more followed Whitaker's career more closely at the time, and he was telling me about all the machinations behind the scenes with the Duvas and how they were protecting Pernell Whitaker to a certain extent prior to the Chavez fight. They never sought out Chavez when Chavez was at his peak, in his prime. Once Chavez started on the decline, all of a sudden they started looking for that fight. So again, it's no fighter is completely clean. No fighter is completely free of controversy. Everybody. So when Crawford comes in here and starts complaining about how he's the victim and woe is me, it's certainly nothing new and certainly nothing that I've never heard before from a fighter who got a lot of privilege during his career. Fuck, you know what? Excuse my language, I just realized I didn't have Discord open. So if somebody was sending me messages, I wouldn't get them. What is this? Something's opening up here now that I didn't click. Fellas, don't forget to hit the like, hit that like. It really helps us out. I'm telling you, it helps us out, so make sure to do that. Hold on a second. Discord. I'm going to invite a couple of people here before we go. I'm going to close the phone line. That's the thing about these new phone lines that we've got. They actually charge you per second. So it's not like with Blog Talk, we can just leave them open for 2 hours. You paid by the month. Here, you got to pay by the minute. So if nobody calls in, the meter's going down or up, as it were, like in a taxi. So I'm going to close the phone lines. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We went about an hour and a half of phone calls here. But the show's not over yet. I still got a couple of things to say, and I want to find out if somebody wants to call in. What the fuck? Excuse my language, I just opened up Discord. It updated without my knowledge, and now it's a different layout. What the heck? Look at this. Let me show you. Let's see if I can put it up here. That's the other thing about OBS. For some reason, it won't let me put the Discord up unless I... Hold on a second. Look at that. It's a new layout. It's darker, too. Certain symbols are a little smaller, too. I don't think I like it. I don't like change. I want to go back to the way things were. All right. What else was I going to say here? Hold on a second. Yeah, let me invite a couple of people, see if anybody wants to jump on, and then if not, I'll just keep on going. I still got a couple of things I want to talk about here. By the way, I think I saw JDA, Joe, the other day on the Discord. Hopefully he's back. It's already been a couple of months he's been MIA. He had a procedure, I believe, that he had to go through. So I'm going to call a couple of people from the panel, see if they want to join. Again, there's not that much going on in boxing right now. That's the thing. Gazelle, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, BDA.
What's up, man? Thank you for being on. Yeah, I'm just going to be here a couple of minutes more. I don't know if you heard. I was talking about that earlier, that somebody from Jim, I think they're the ones that promote Mbili. Anyway, they were saying that they offered Pacheco and Matchroom, they made them an offer to fight, and that Pacheco feels like they've got other options or something like that. Hold on, let me see what they said. But what do you think about an Mbili Pacheco fight? How do you see that going?
Who, me?
I'm talking to Gonzalo.
Hey, that's a good fight. Yeah, Chief, that's a good fight. I'd favor Pacheco. But still, I mean, Billy's a power puncher. He comes forward, he doubles up the hooks to the body and head. And, yeah, but I think he's got a little bit on the shorter end for, what's the division?
Super middleweight.
Super middleweight. Yeah, I think he's like 5'9" or something.
Yeah, he's
on
like 6'2". He's below average when it comes to super middleweight. Just real quick, this is what Camille Estefan, who I think is from, I always confuse Jim with the other Montreal promotion. Anyway, he said, update, we offered $400,000 to Pacheco. No yes, no, and no counter offer. Matchroom, are they busy? Oh, okay, so he says they didn't even bother replying. So, I don't know. Everyone's always got their own version. I'd like to hear Matchroom's version. Chief, what about you? What do you think about Mbili versus Pacheco? Do you got any thoughts on that? Or maybe we could... Oh, I can't hear Chief now. The fuck? Anyway, So yeah, I think that would be an entertaining fight. But again, most of these guys, they don't want to put their undefeated fight, especially when they're from different promotions. They're not going to pit them against each other. Not usually, unless Turkey Al-Sheikh brings that bag, as I like to say, and offers them a good payday that's worth the risk. Otherwise, nah, I don't think they're going to fight each other. People in the chat believe that Pacheco would win easily. Yeah, I'm not. And Bill is a good fighter. I like watching him fight. Must see TV, but come on, he struggled with a one-armed Davidyachenko. So how good is he really?
Good question.
There you go.
No, I mean, I think it will be a good fight. I don't know if the finances are going to make it happen. I think the only way any fights are going to happen outside of, well, there's no outside of. I think the only any real fights are going to happen is for Turkey to put any kind of money up, because America just doesn't generate enough money for anyone to be satisfied in today's economy. And so, you know, someone says we offer 400,000. 400,000 a day doesn't even buy a house in my area.
Yeah, that's a good point, man.
So, and then of course you got to pay your. I don't know if there's a title online for this fight. If there is, you got to pay your sanctioning fee. Then you got to pay your corner. You got to pay your promoter. You got to pay your manager. You got to pay your trainer, and then you can maybe put a down payment on a house in my area with what's left over. But that's
Look at Chief. You're flexing like that dude that was bad-mouthing you on the VC a couple of days ago.
No, I'm not trying to talk about like I live in. I'm just talking about the expense of what it's like to live in Virginia these days. It's a little more expensive than it used to be. Like when I first moved here in 2015, that would have bought you a house. It won't buy you a house anymore. So who's going to want to try and fight, especially when some of these guys we know are not the Ray Leonards and Tommy Hearns that are going to get generational money. You might have one shot at getting a really good payday that can probably put you in a position for later. Great. Then it needs to be worth your while. Because if it's not, you know, that money, it can still go far. But you need something to try and set you up for, like, can it buy a house? Can it be a good starting point for a nest egg for retirement? Can it be something you can start a business with? It needs to be something that you can change your life with. And if it's not, then is it really worth it?
Chief is like 400,000. I can shit that out of my ass any day. It's like, come on, Chief.
That's not what I was trying to say. But I mean, again, well, it's not even 400,000 after you pay everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. Yeah, it's. But you know what? That's the thing, though. And Billy, when he fights here. He's making a name for himself in Quebec, in Montreal, rather. But he's not really drawing that much either. Same thing with Pacheco. Neither guy is actually filling up arenas or anything. So maybe 400,000 is commensurate with what they're worth. I don't know. I'd have to really see.
Trust me, I get that part of boxing, because you shouldn't pay people for more than what they're worth. Because look at what we're going through in America right now with all these queens trying to say they deserve more than what they can bring in. I get it. But at the same time, you know, in a division like, you said this is super welterweight, right?
Yeah, middleweight, super middleweight.
Super middleweight. Okay. Well, I mean, when you've got a division that has a decent amount of talent plus a huge money king and Canelo in that division, you would like to think that you could get more than 400 grand for a fight. Now, I mean, I don't know. I don't try and sneeze at money. I don't think we should overpay anyone, but at the same time, you've got to like look at the risk versus reward for your own life of like, is 400,000 in today's economy really worth it, depending on the level of the competition. You know, if these guys are not at world-class level, then yeah, you should probably take it. If they're right at the world-class level, you got to start looking at the fact of like, look, can you get it over $500,000? Can you get it towards
that's a good point. Let's keep in mind, however, and this was quite a while ago, so inflation and all that, whatever, but Kelly Pavlik, when he fought Jermaine Taylor for the middleweight championship of the world, everything deducted and all that, he earned $600,000. And that was for a middleweight championship bout. So 400,000, you're right. It's not much now.
You said he walked away with 600, not was paid up front and then had to pay everybody.
That's true. So I don't know what they meant over there at with Camilo Stefan meant, but whatever. The other thing I wanted to bring up is Richardson Hitchens, by the way, just recently.
Oh, my favorite guy.
Come on. He's been going back and forth. You know, that's today's fighters, that they fight more on Twitter than they do on in the actual ring. He says he's open now to avenging his amateur loss to Jermaine Ortiz, and this is good, man, because the guy that they're talking about pitting him against is George Kambosos. I'm sorry, George Kambosos. Okay, good for him. He beat Teofimo Lopez 4 years ago now. 4 years. Thereafter, he lost to Devin Haney, wasn't even competitive. Then loses to Maxi Hughes, but gets a gift decision. And ever since then, he's just been used as a punching bag. Lomachenko went in there, wiped the floor with him. I'm sorry, I don't want to see that guy against Hitchens. I already know Kambosos doesn't have a jab. He doesn't know how to cut the distance. He doesn't know how to get on the inside. He's not an inside fighter. He's just going to get out the box. So I'd rather see Jermaine Ortiz, who at least is a very explosive guy, fight Hitchens. What do you guys think?
Well, as far as Kambosos goes, I would like to say the fact that he's aging like milk and not like wine.
That's right.
So, I mean, what are you going to learn from all these losses? Oh, maybe I do need to use a jab because it's like, the basics of boxing. Right. At his age, with the amount of fights he's got, whatever he's got in his tool bag, it's what he's got. And I mean, I suppose that anyone, if they really try and dedicate themselves, Lennox Lewis was in his 30s when he changed and became the great fighter that he was. Kambosos is not Lennox Lewis. Don't mix what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if Kambosos really wants to improve what he has left, he has to really dedicate and possibly take some to. He's not doing that. He's doing none of that. He's changing.
Oh, you cut out there, Chief. Yeah, Chief, you cut out. Yeah, that's a fight I'd like to see. That's a fight I'd like to see. I'd much rather see that than Kambosos fight Hitchens. I mean, give me Kambosos versus Teofimo Lopez first. I'd like to see that one. Rematch, finally. Settle the score. Kambosos has already proven that he couldn't do diddly squat against Haney. Although he did better in the rematch, but it was still a wipeout. Couldn't do anything against that listless Lomachenko, who's got one foot out the door. Got outboxed by Maxi Hughes, who then got run over by William Cepeda. So, I don't know, man. I Kambosos, again, good for him. He's earned every penny. A boxer like him honest guy, has earned every cent he's ever received. But as a consumer now, I'm telling you, I don't want to see the fight against Hitchens. It's not an interesting fight, especially since it seems like it's going to be a one-sided bout. I do invite people, by the way, to go check out our video that we just posted yesterday over at our secondary channel, which is a little bit more reserved for film analysis, stuff like that. Kind of like we do with Patreon for free, by the way. And it's about Farmer's clinching. He did a lot of clinching in that fight. And I really want to kickstart a discussion one day about clinching because we finally made a little progress denigrating the sanctioning bodies. People finally starting to wake up on that and getting on board that on social media. Next step is let's get people on board to, if we want to make boxing great again, as they're saying nowadays, and really want to make the fight, the product attractive again, there's nothing more attractive. There's nothing, few things are better than actually giving people a good product and allowing people to break the rules by clinching, bending below the waist, hitting below the belt, like Chief's favorite, Pernell Whitaker. That only sullies the image of boxing and it makes the fights less entertaining. So I think that's something that I want to push, really, the anti-clinching, anti-rule breaking thing.
I'm with you on that. I mean, but to be fair, some of our favorite great fighters also were big clinchers. Roberto Duran was really good at grabbing with the meat hooks and mauling. So I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, well, it was okay when Duran did it. Well, it's never been okay.
Exactly.
And so the fact that Muhammad Ali was just as bad as he was actually worse because being taller, he grabbed people behind the head versus just using the meat hooks. So he's now like straining their neck. All the greats did it. That doesn't make it okay. What it did was it set the precedence of what we have now, which is excessive amounts of clinching because how many fighters really know how to fight inside?
Exactly.
How many really know how to rip the uppercut when someone squared their shoulders up and they're bending at the waist? It should be the first punch you use. Nobody knows how to do it anymore because they'll clinch instead.
It's interesting, man, because I remember when, just to give people how long I've been hearing this same argument about, well, this guy did it, so it's okay. I remember when Zahir Rahim, former American Olympian, took on another American Olympian, Rocky Juarez. They fought in 2004, right? They're fighting. Zahir Rahim is a quick, long guy, longer than Juarez. Juarez is a shorter guy with a mean left hook. He wants to get on the inside. So Rahim, he couldn't keep Juarez off of him, so he started clinching. That's usually what happens with clinchers. The referee had the temerity to deduct a point or maybe even two from Rahim. And I remember the day after on the message boards, people complaining, "Oh my God, can you believe the referee took a point away?" Blah blah blah. And then the discussion was, "Yeah, but come on, man, it's a lot of clinching. It's against the rules." And some people would say, "Yeah, but Ali did it against Frazier in the rematch." And then William Dedloff over at Ring Magazine said, just because somebody did, guess what? Yeah, Ali did it against Frazier in the rematch. Guess what? He should have have the points deducted. Just because a guy did it doesn't make it okay. It's the same. It's almost like when people talk about rapes and all that. Imagine you go, well, rapes have always happened. So why? You're saying it's okay? You're saying it? What are you trying to say? Well, not you, Chief.
Well, Tyson did it, so, I'm not saying he really did it, but I mean, someone was, well, Mike Tyson did it, so it's okay. No, it's wrong no matter who does it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you actually remember, Hector Camacho had a point deducted against Felix Trinidad for clinching too much.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 90s, they actually used to enforce it, but somewhere along the way, they just stopped. And in the 2000s, obviously there was a small case for it because, like you said, Sayer Rahim, and I remember him from the Olympics in '96. But he did that was his career thing. He was a clincher from the get-go also, and it seems like that was almost like the beginning of the long-limbed American boxer not knowing how to fight inside, because Tarver didn't fight inside very well. Neither did he. He meaning Rahim. Floyd could throw the uppercut, but he'd only throw it when he knew he could land it and not get hit back. Aside from that, he'd clinch. Roy liked to clinch. Roy liked to cover up against the ropes, but he wasn't really big with like throwing. He would use angles to throw body shots, but he wasn't really like his head on your chest and work your body over if he needed to. If he couldn't get it from the outside or from an angle, he would clinch.
Right.
He wasn't a clincher per se, but that was part of his arsenal because he didn't want to get hit back. Like we're not going to go back in this. Well, nobody likes to get hit, but he was big with the movement of, I want to still have my faculties when I'm done, so I'm going to fight in a way that's not going to get me hurt. And it's only gotten worse since then.
Exactly, because then it costs us the fans. What would you rather see, Chief? Would you, a clean fight or a guy clinching because he can't fight on the inside or because he's tired or for whatever reason, clinching? And that's the other thing I wanted to say. In this video, I address a couple of the arguments that people make to try to be okay with the clinching. You look at the rules. That's where the starting point. What do the rules say? Forget about whether I like it or not. What do the rules say? And it's interesting because the WBC is the only organization that qualifies the clinching and the cheating as quantitative, meaning they say excessive clinching is illegal. But meanwhile, you look at the WBO, the WBA, the IBA. For some reason, I can't find what the IBF says. That's weird. But anyway, they all say holding, they don't call it clinching, holding is illegal. In fact, the WBA, I actually like the explanation they give. They say there's nothing, I don't know why they put this in the rule book, but they say few things are more frustrating to the fans than holding. And it's true because even they realize that it dilutes the entertainment level of the fight. And as I said in the video too, why do we watch boxing? Well, number one, we watch it to be entertained. And part of the entertainment is to find out who the best guy is, who the superior boxer is, especially when it's two top guys like Bivol Beterbiev, for example. We want to find out, okay, these guys have beaten everybody in their division. Now it's between them to decide who the best is. I want to see who the superior boxer is, not who the superior guy at breaking the rules is. So you see what I'm saying? So there's a bunch of reasons why it dilutes the entertainment level and the product.
Well, I'll just put it this way. My dad's generation and one of my uncles, he's my mother's sister's husband. So he's my uncle, but he's not blood related. But they're of the same generation, even though my dad's a little bit older, and they quit watching boxing for the excessive holding. They didn't like it. It wasn't what they grew up with, and they got tired of it, so they just quit watching it. Mm-hmm. Now they're old, so no one really cares as much. They're in their 70s and 80s, and they're probably not going to pay for a fight no matter what. But that's beside the point. The precedent was already set for them to not pass it on to their kids. I mean, I discovered boxing on my own. My dad didn't pass it on to me. He had lost interest prior to me being old enough to watch it because, again, the excessive clinching. He didn't like Ali clinching so much, and they didn't like other fighters. You'd tune into big fights, and there would be a lot of holding and walking backwards, and the ref having to say break, and it interrupts the action, interrupts the flow. It's as aggravating to watch as it is to be the one being clinched.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so it turned off an entire generation.
I mean, but that's how do these guys, Chief? How do these guys not know the rules? I'm talking about the referees. Why do they not apply them? And then it becomes even worse when you see a guy like, I mentioned this in the video, a guy like Harvey Duck, who was refereeing the Zepeda Farmer, the first fight, and allowed all the clinching. He also was a referee for Garcia Haney, where he allowed them to clinch. So you would say, okay, so at least he's being consistent. But then you watch the Karen versus Annie's rematch, he deducted a point from the Karen for clinching. So I'm thinking, why deduct a point from that dude, but not from all those other guys? Right. Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it both? What is it?
I definitely think it's a level of it's lackadaisical. I don't want to call it incompetence. I'm sure they know the rules, but I don't know why he chose one fight versus not the others, but it's become so norm that they're not going to. You know, you'd be deducting points so much. And I'm not saying this is the reason. But I'm under the impression you'd be taking so many points away that I think we're to the point now that you'd be taking so many points away, there'd be so much controversy in certain fights that would also turn the fans off. Because now the refs are getting overly involved. And like you said, the best referee is the one you only see at the beginning, at the end of a fight. They won't be like that if they have to overly enforce, because it starts in the gym. It starts in the gym teaching your fighters not have to clinch when you're inside.
Exactly.
So the referees may need to enforce it, and there's no argument against that. That's 100% correct. But your trainers, first of all, we don't have teachers anymore. We have aerobics instructors teaching guys how to box.
Oh,
it's box Olympics or kickbox aerobics that's teaching kids how to kind of just throw punches. The fundamentals aren't there. They're not on their toes. They're not shadow boxing for 5 hours at a time from the time they're 5 years old to the time they're 10. The fundamentals are not there, and it's obvious. They're flat-footed these days. They're not on their toes. They don't bounce up and down a lot. They don't jump the rope. They don't hit the heavy bag that often. There's so many fundamentals we've talked about that's obviously not there in today's American boxing. And it starts there, because if the coach teaches you how to fight on the inside, you're not worried about being clinched, because you know how to handle yourself. So it starts with looking for real, honest to God trainers, which we obviously don't have a lot of them. And if they're teaching their fighters how to combat being held, I'm not a professional, but when I usually tell people try and grab me behind the head, it's pretty hard to do that because I know how to roll away from the clinch. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not in the ring, and I'm not as agile as I used to be. But when people used to try and grab me behind the head, I would move my head towards their the inner part where their elbow meets their bicep, and then I would slip right out from underneath that spot. So I would so the second they would try and grab, I'd move my head forward and duck under it. And they couldn't figure out how to grab me because I was cutting the distance to where they couldn't use their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little afraid.
I was a little afraid of where you were going with that when you said they pulled me down. My face, like, oh, then what would you do? What? But anyway, yeah, you kept it clean. But keep going.
Well, I mean, I kept it clean because I wouldn't put myself in that predicament. I was slipping away.
Of course, you wouldn't.
And I knew how to do that. And I would teach fighters how to do that. And I would show them how to not get clinched behind the neck. Mm-hmm. Well, if I can do this, and the fighters I trained could do this, why is what's that guy Ben Davidson that Stu used to love so much? Why is he not teaching people that? Why is Spence's trainer not teaching people that? Why are these guys that are getting millions of dollars a fight not teaching their fighters how to not get clinched?
I can understand if perhaps sometimes these guys don't do it because that's what differentiates good fighters from the bad ones. Maybe these guys are bad fighters because they can't. Maybe they are being taught that, but they just can't pull it off. I'll give you an example. In terms to your point about how some of these guys, how are they not being taught properly certain things? There was a Pro Box event on Saturday. A very good event, by the way. It was actually better than the PBC card. Lester Martinez, I think is his guy's name. Guatemalan. Pretty sure people Rapid would have loved him. But this Guatemalan guy ended up fighting another undefeated guy. It was a battle of undefeated fighters. His opponent, whom he beat, knocked him out. He's fighting a puncher, okay? Chief, Lester Martinez is a puncher. His opponent is staying in front of him from the first round on with the lead hand down. Kind of like that, that pose that they like to do, like Philly shell type stuff. And I'm thinking, you're fighting a puncher, standing in front of him, you don't have your hands up? At least in the first, like we've talked about how Roy Jones would have his rooster style, but he would at least keep the hands up in the first couple of rounds until he figured the guy out. And then he would do the rooster style. This dude had it from the first round on, and guess what happened? He gets caught with an overhand right in the third round, I want to say. Gets up, and he's still fighting with his hands down. I mean, and so somebody could say, Chief, yeah, well, he's fighting with his hands down still because, he got concussed. He got caught with a big punch. No, he was fighting that way beforehand. So how are they not teaching him to keep his fucking hands up?
The first part about it is that only special fighters can do that and be very good and proficient at it.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop and look at the people that actually keep that left hand low and the right hand high and rarely get hit, how many are like career-long successful at it? I mean, Adrian Broner had really good reflexes when he was young, and he could only do it when he was the weight bully. Once guys were his size, he couldn't pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Floyd could pull it off. Roy could pull it off. James Toney could do it. Hopkins. But even James Toney could only do it when he was against the ropes and you were coming to him.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, he didn't do it as proficiently, and none of them are very proficient at coming forward aggressively. It's not an aggressive posture. So when people are doing it, they're usually doing it to set up a defense and for counterpunching, and they're usually doing it from a distance to where you're reaching and you're off balance. And once you're off balance, they can counter. And you're usually out of range of a lot of these. Like when Floyd makes it look like you're missing by a second, he already knows you're out of range.
Mm-hmm.
But he moves just before the punch to make it look like you missed him. Most of the time, it's like when Ray Leonard did it to Hagler. Other than the punches that were that he ducked under, the ones that were going to his head, he was already out of range. He just moved just before you could tell he was at. He didn't have to move his head. He could have kept his hands down. He still would have gotten hit because he knew the range.
Right.
Ray was smart. He understood what range was. So he already knew he wasn't going to get hit. For aesthetics, he just pulled his head back to make it look that much more impressive. And also to discourage Hagler. But the bottom line is when people drop that hand down, if they're getting hit a lot, it's because they're already not proficient in knowing how to use it to begin with.
Not only that, but like you said that it's not an aggressive posture to have the lead hand down. And that's one of the reasons why Teofimo Lopez, people always keep asking, how is he so horrible at cutting the ring off or being an aggressive fighter? Well, because when you will notice when he's fighting Subriel Matias and Jermaine Ortiz, he's coming forward with the lead hand down. Right there, that posture is telling the brain you're wide open. Like your subconscious knows it. And subconsciously, these guys, therefore, can't cut the ring off properly or be aggressive because they know they're about to get hit. Whenever you see Teofimo Lopez attacking, you'll see him open up that feet stance way too wide and he's jumping in from way too far. Why? Because he knows, I can't get too close to these guys because I'm going to get hit. Yeah, you're going to get hit because you got your hands down. You have to put the guard up if you're being a pressure fighter. Rarely have I seen a guy be able to pressure a competent opponent doing so with the hands down. That doesn't work. Yeah. And it just goes to our point about how some of these guys, Teofimo Lopez Sr. did a good job of bringing his son up to this level of boxing. Not many fathers can. But I think also that has to do a lot with Lopez's own level of ring intelligence and the fact that he's also physically talented. But then now you're seeing at the world-class level, you're starting to see his limitations. He doesn't know how to fight going forward. He doesn't have a jab. There's a lot of holes in that game that a competent trainer would have fixed already.
Yes. And most counterpunchers aren't good aggressors.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole premise of your attack is for them to, like I said, whether you're getting them to reach and come off balance, which really should be the objective for a counterpuncher, because it's only going to increase the impact of the blow when their weight is off balance and they're moving into the shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the most ideal way. Is you're already out of range. You put yourself in a position to where they can't hit you while being balanced. Therefore, they have to reach, and once they reach past I'm not in geometry, so I don't know the right way to put this, but let's just say you move off the axis, for lack of a way of putting it. Once you move off the center line, that's the term I was looking for. And at the same time, they can catch you while you're doing it. That's the ideal knockout shot. Now, if you don't have any other part of your repertoire, but you're a pure counterpuncher, which is what Lopez really is, all those knockouts he got on the way up were all counter shots when people were leaving themselves wide open for him to leap in with something big. They were either moving backward or they were leaning too far forward most of the time. And that got him to be able to use his power to they were already weak in stance. If they're leaning back too far, their back leg is usually bent, and so when you hit them, they've got nothing to brace themselves with, and they go down. If they're too far forward, their weight's off, and they're moving into the punch, and he catches them just right. And now you've increased the impact of the power of the punch because you're moving into it, right? And that's what he did most of the way up as a contender / prospect. Like you said, now that he's gotten the world-class level, guys aren't doing this anymore. Well, he never developed any other part of his repertoire other than being an excellent knockout counterpuncher. And so, like you said, you're seeing flaws in the game because he's using a counterpuncher's repertoire to try and be aggressive, and that does not work. Some fighters may be able to pull it off, but again, those are your Ray Leonards or your not your Pernell Whitakers, but like your Floyd Mayweathers, your Roy Joneses, your exceptional, ultimate exceptional fighters. That's not Teofimo Lopez. He's proven to not be anything overly exceptional yet, and it's not because he's bad. It's just because he doesn't have those reflexes, especially at the higher weights, to be able to hurt people with those shots.
The other problem is we were talking about learning and being able to pick up these nuances. The other problem might be the inactivity. A lot of these guys aren't as active in the ring, in the actual professional ring. They spar a lot, which is, you learn there, but you also, that litmus test is actually pulling it off in the ring. That's why prospects used to have, Xander Zayas, I actually noticed, has way more, I think he's got more fights than Keyshawn Davis, and I think they came from the same Olympics. I believe, I could be wrong, but so it's interesting how he's actually had a more active career than some of these guys. Teofimo Lopez doesn't even have 20 fights yet, I don't think. Let me check his official record. I think he just recently had his 20th-something fight, which is bizarre because it seems like he's been around forever. I mean, think about it. Right. The Lomachenko fight was 5 years ago, or it's going to be 5 years ago this October. Meanwhile, he's got less than 30 fights. How is that possible?
Exactly. But there's a lot to that outside of the fighter's fault. We've addressed this before, but it is detrimental to the sport because again, you're stuck in this one level of development. And like you said, you can do it all the time in sparring, but if you're not doing it in the actual ring and when you have the smaller gloves on, when the people are watching, when the opponent is real and not just there to try and help make you better, so they're purposely doing things so you can practice something. Uh-huh. When your sparring partner is purposely dropping the left so you can learn how to time the right hand, and they're wearing the headgear and punch mitts so they can catch it, and they're not trying to get hurt, and you're not trying to hurt them. You're just working on fundamentals. Okay, that's all well and great, but that person's there for a reason to help doing something to make you better. The opponent on the other side of the ring in a real fight is trying to win, and he's not dropping his hand on purpose to try and give you any advantage.
Exactly.
And when you're trying to develop and you're fighting different styles, I mean, the other part is like Ray Leonard may have not had as many fights as I cannot remember his name. The guy that beat Mark Breland.
The guy who beat Mark Breland?
Marlon Starling.
Oh, okay.
Marlon Starling had almost 50 fights by the time he got his first title shot.
Jeez, Louise.
So, but the point about this is that he was well seasoned by the time he got to his world title shot. Mm-hmm. He had a bunch of fights. And he probably had a lot of fights he didn't get paid very well for. But the proof was in the pudding when he finally fought Mark Breland because he was on a level above Mark Breland, and it showed because of all the experience. He fought Donald Curry twice. He fought Floyd Mayweather, I believe, once. He fought some other good contenders along the way. And all this culminated in fighting the next Golden Boy, and he was a level above him, and it came from all of the work in the gym and in the ring. These guys are almost being rushed to title shots.
Yeah.
They're not overly proficient on being all-around skilled. They have a very good set of skills in an isolated area of the sport, and they're not developing all the way around before they get to the world title stage. And then when they even get there, like you said, Teofimo Lopez should have had minimum of 2 fights a year. That would have been 10 fights by now. He would have been well over 20. He would be very close to 30 fights by now.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Because he had 19 when he won the title, I do believe, from Lomachenko. So that would have put him close to 30 fights by now, and he doesn't have that. And so he's been isolated on what he can develop only so far in the gym.
Technique in the chat says it's crazy that Teo Lopez lost to Kambosos. Yeah, it is weird that, in hindsight, you've seen Haney Kambosos completely nullified by Haney twice, outboxed by Maxi Hughes, gets a gift decision. Then he loses to Lomachenko, I believe, right? Did he lose to somebody else? I forget, but let's not forget, though, even in that win, it was a close fight. Kambosos walked out of that fight. Look at his face. He looked like he went through a meat grinder. I mean, same thing for Lopez, but what I'm saying is they both gave it to each other. They both dropped each other in that fight. People forget Lopez actually dropped Kambosos late in the fight. So even then, it's not like Kambosos got this overwhelming win over Lopez. In hindsight, I mean, at the moment, it was monumental because Lopez had just beaten Lomachenko, and whoa, now he's in the top pound-for-pound list, or top 10 at least. I think this Kambosos guy, whose best opponents at the time were Mickey Bay and Lee, whatever his name is, I forget, from England. That's what made it so monumental. But it wasn't, the dominant win that some people make it out to be. It's not like Lopez got completely washed in that fight. It was a very close fight.
Right, and then on top of that, like you said, Mickey Bay was one of his best wins, and Mickey Bay's only real title win that I remember was against Miguel. Someone, I don't remember how to pronounce his last name, and it was a fight that he clearly could have lost. Because he was moving around the ring so much. He was doing so much movement. So it wasn't an impressive win. It was one title win, and then I think he lost his first defense. And come on, that's your world title experience prior to fighting Tio.
Well, I mean,
it's not a huge resume.
Right. Mickey Bay wasn't he was a good, like I said, he was a top, I think at the time he might have been a top 10 lightweight. But I mean, yeah, it's what I'm saying is you looked at that Kambosos fight against Mickey Bay and against Lee Selby. I think it was Lee Selby. They were very close fights where even Kambosos didn't look all that, right. You know what, he didn't dominate. I mean, that it was one punch at a time. And that worked against Teofimo Lopez, but it didn't work against someone with a jab or someone that knows how to cut the ring off like Vasil Lomachenko. So Kambosos is a very limited fighter too, and it is amazing in hindsight that a guy like Lopez, who's a two-time undisputed champion, could lose against somebody like that. But then again, see, that's the thing. It's all context. Lopez, you could say, I'm not saying he's won only because of good luck, but he's had some good luck. When he fought Lomachenko was injured. When he fought Josh Taylor was on the downslide. And the key evidence here for Josh Taylor being a shell of his former self was that not only did he look like crap after the Lopez fight, but he looked like crap beforehand when he got a gift decision over Catterall. So that's 3 fights in a row where he looked like crap. So evidently there was something wrong with him by that at the time he fought Lopez. So all I'm saying is, listen, in this world, you make your own luck. Lopez wanted those fights, he got them, and he walked away with a win. But what I'm saying is, did he really beat the best versions of his best opponents? I doubt that.
Well, the person that put in the answer to that is no. And look, Kambosos is an overachiever who has milked the opportunity to have been by the grace of God, have been given a living well past what he could have earned any other way. Because let's face it, if he would have lost to Lopez in that razor close fight, none of the rest of these fights that have paid him very well would have happened. Not a single one. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't have been able to make a living in Australia because they like their local heroes. But it's like earning $50,000 a fight and having to fight 4 times a year in Australia to pull down, close to $200,000 before you have to pay everyone out, versus getting millions of dollars per fight, fighting Lomachenko and fighting Haney twice and fighting some of these other guys. His stars completely changed from a very fortunate sequence of events. And congratulations to him. But I mean, he's an overachiever. He has claim to fame. He's overcapitalized on it and good for him. But there's nothing else to the sport when it comes to him in regards to that. Now, the fact that Teofimo lost to him kind of shows a level of the fact that either Teofimo was not 100%, which is extremely possible, or the fact that Kambosos just really showed up and overachieved that night. It could have been a combination of both. Buster Douglas did overachieve that night, and Mike Tyson wasn't 100%. 2 things happened at one time. That could have happened against Tio, too.
And you know what? Yeah, look, people could say, well, especially if that fight would have happened at the time, Tyson Douglas, people, we would all be saying probably, hey, that wasn't the same Tyson. Whether it was or it wasn't, like you said, Douglas showed up. He wasn't supposed to win, and he walked away with a win and a good payday. That should be good enough for him. You know what I mean? But the reality would remain, you didn't beat the best Mike Tyson. I mean, would we have liked to have seen that actually happen? Yeah, but that's also something we have to accept as boxing fans, that sometimes guys show up and they're not at their best. That's why I unless a fighter is, I would understand if a fighter is fearful or somewhat hesitant to fight legitimate monsters like Beterbiev, like Inoue, like Golovkin. Those guys were legitimately scary in their time. Or Manny Pacquiao back at Super Bantamweight.
Shane Mosley.
Or Shane Mosley. Yeah, I would understand that. But even then, if you're a real fighter and you have a fighter's mentality, they should also understand that nothing's guaranteed in the boxing ring. How many times have we seen these guys who looked invincible suffer upset loss? I mean, Mike Tyson, you just mentioned him. And also, furthermore, you also don't know what's going to happen in the ring. You never know if a guy, no matter how invincible he may seem, you don't know if he's fighting with his wife. He's having marital problems that are affecting his training. Maybe he's got the flu that day. Maybe he's had a nagging injury. You just don't know. It's the risk that these guys take in the sport of walking in there with an injury or less than 100%, and that's the way it is. And in the perfect world, they would rematch each other and find out who the real great, the superior fighter is. But unfortunately, with Teofimo Lopez, we never find out that because he didn't want to rematch Lomachenko.
And Buster Douglas lost to Evander Holyfield. But there's also a flip side to this. You also have guys that are ultra talented, you can tell, in spurts. But there's just that extra it factor you can't explain that they're just lacking, like two junior middleweights I'm about to mention, and she's in the back. And J-Rock and Tony Harrison, when they're on in the early rounds and doing stuff, they look like they're world beaters. And of course, J-Rock looked like a world beater against he gave Charlo a really tough fight for a while till he got knocked out, and he beat Jared Hurd. He was a tough fight, but he dug deep, and you saw a lot of good skills because it was the inside fighting and those uppercuts that got him that win. The punch we talked about earlier that most people were lacking, he was showing. So it's like, hey, he looks like he has something that most people don't have today. And then he loses his next fight, and he hasn't really won anything significant after that. But you can tell he's got physical talent. Some of these guys, like I said, they overachieve on a night, and then that's all they really have.
We shall see what happens on Saturday. On Saturday, when Lopez fights. What's his name? Man, I'm forgetting the names here. I'm getting sleepy. Barboza. We're gonna see, because that's a guy that's a top dude at 140 pounds. He's on a good run. He's undefeated. And we'll see what Lopez is made of. I like Lopez in that fight, that's for sure. So we'll see what happens there.
Hopefully he gives a really good performance to put people on notice, because I don't think he draws anything by himself.
No.
But you mix him in with somebody else, like a Haney, or like someone that people want to see lose, or like a Ryan Garcia, who, as it has turned out, his Twitter following is almost as much as his ring, what people pay to see. Not quite as much, but he definitely helps bring more money than most other people aside from Tank Davis. So, but you add Tio's name to somebody like that, and all of a sudden, now there's by himself nothing. But you like Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker didn't make a whole lot of money on his own. But you put him with Chavez, and I think they split a $10 million payday. You add him in with Oscar De La Hoya, and I think they split like a $16 million payday. On his own, he doesn't sell that. You put him in with somebody who can sell because of his reputation, he brings a little bit more to the pot. Lopez by himself doesn't sell, but you put him in with a Haney or someone that people either want to see lose or they think he can. Something that whets the appetite is the only way I know how to put it. And all of a sudden, it becomes a moneymaker. Well, so he needs a dance partner, but I think that his name can help garner that so long as he's in with somebody else's name. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, one last thing before we depart on that subject is that before you got here, I was taking phone calls, and I was talking about in a recent interview Terence Crawford gave to Ring Magazine, where he was essentially espousing woe is me, and a woe is me attitude. He was talking about how he's always been doubted. People have always had doubts about his ability, blah, 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 which first of all, that's, like I said, that's part of being a top-level boxer on TV. People are going to doubt you. He didn't get any disproportionate hate other than from the Spence fans in the build-up to that fight. Also, Top Rank took real good care of him financially, and yet he still feels like he was somehow, besmirched by Top Rank. So what I was trying to say then was that, George Foreman just recently passed away, and he's getting all the attention, taking all the attention away from Livingston Bramble, who I think you were the first guy to mention in the Discord that he'd passed away. And I was reading about Livingston Bramble on Ring TV. They did a soliloquy on him, and they were talking about, I didn't know this. I didn't know he'd fought Obakar in 1991, and that fight apparently had been controversial. So it just goes to show you that Obakar is a guy that, whenever you bring up the name Obakar to hardcore boxing fans, they'll say, unlucky, perhaps one of the unluckiest welterweights because he was unlucky to share the same generation with Icorte, Trinidad, and De La Hoya, all of whom beat him. That if he would have been in another generation, perhaps he would have been a titleist. But then you look at Obakar, whose people call unlucky. He got 2 gift decisions, one against Bramble, which I didn't know about, and another one against your friend Daryl Coley. So I just wanted to illustrate to everybody I just wanted to illustrate, Chief, to the boxing world that not everyone has a clean career and not everyone has a completely bad career. If you're with anybody that's a top-level promoter, whether it's Top Rank, Don King, Matchroom, whatever, you're going to get a couple of bumps up the ladder that maybe you shouldn't earn or that you didn't earn. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say the one with Daryl Coley, I thought he should have lost, but that was a hard-fought fight regardless, and they both gave it to him. And if I remember correctly, I think that was a draw. I don't think he got the win. I have to go back and look. I think that one might have been a draw, and there was the controversy because Daryl Coley definitely thought he won that fight, and I'm not going to argue with him because he put a lot of effort into that fight and stunned Dakar on many occasions. Anybody it's on YouTube, go look it up. That fight is the best non-title fight of the 90s at the welterweight division. It was now I'm not saying it's the greatest welterweight fight of all time, but of the 90s. No, I'm saying that of all the non-title fights in the welterweight division in the 90s, that one has to be probably the best. Your bigger fights, obviously, some of them actually lived up to expectations, but that one was definitely one to watch. You're not going to regret it. That being said, Carr had a few questionable decisions, but he was still a very highly skilled fighter. One of his situations was Manny Stewart's a great trainer, but Manny loves to train people for the knockout, and when you're not a knockout puncher, you don't usually do well. There's friction in the corner. There's friction in it because Manny ends up getting disappointed in you. And of course, he's like a father figure to some of these guys. And so they end up getting frustrated because they're not doing what he wants them to do. Maybe they don't have the tools to do that. Carr was he was a sharp puncher, but he was not a power puncher. Mm-hmm. And so when he couldn't knock out Livingston Bramble, and when he couldn't knock out Daryl Coley, who didn't have the best chin, when he couldn't knock out some of these guys, but he had the skills to outbox these guys, when he left Manny Stewart, he actually did better. Because he lived up to the rest of his talent.
Right.
He was a very well-schooled fighter all around, but Manny wanted him to be a knockout puncher. He just was not a knockout puncher. And by being in there, there was another fighter before Daryl Coley when he was on the way up. I remember USA, it was on USA Tuesday Night Fights, and I just remember him being aggravated because they were trying to say he didn't look good. And he kind of, one of his responses was like, I don't know what you guys want from me. And it was because they were trying to make him into a fighter he really wasn't. He was a sharp puncher. He was competent. I know I'm repeating myself, but because he couldn't get the knockouts and because he was going in there to try and please Manny and go in there and go for the knockout instead of letting it come and boxing his way to victory. And if the knockout came, take it, he was staying in harm's way a little too much. And some of those fights were a little closer than they needed to be. Mm-hmm. And so, ended up disappearing for a little bit, left Manny Stewart, comes back under Don King. Like you said, he had a very successful career. He just didn't win a title. But again, Ike Corte may not be a Hall of Famer, but he's one that people do talk about, like the maybes that might get in one day. And we know that Trinidad and De La Hoya were first ballot Hall of Famers to begin with. And then the rest of the division is Coley and Yori Boy Campus, who he did knock out. So it shows that he was a very good fighter because he was a natural 140-pounder, and he knocked out a guy that fell all the way up to 160. So he was definitely an exceptional fighter. He just was in a very deep division at a very deep era.
Yeah, but
so sorry to go too long on that, but
that's all right. That's all right. But yeah, but the initial point was that people certain. I think it's the nature of humanity. We're wired due to evolution to react strongly or more strongly to negative things in life than to the actual good ones. And once you actually clap your hands and wake up and, look at reality, you go, you know what? Let me count my blessings. And then all of a sudden, you realize that they overwhelm the bad things. So I think that's what's going on with Crawford. I think Crawford is a very conceited guy, a very self-centered guy for the most part, especially as it pertains to his boxing career. Which I guess you got to have a certain sense of arrogance, but not overwhelming. And that's what's going on with Crawford. I think he's this "woe is me" attitude, whereas he's actually been privileged in boxing, is reminiscent of people that support him and who are in his circle, like Shakur Stevenson, like Clarissa Shields. Very similar statements they've made throughout their careers about how everyone's against them and this and that. And I go, it's a shame. But yeah, boxers should count their blessings too, especially if you're fighting on the zone, if you're fighting on, if you used to fight in the PBC or Showtime when they had an actual network behind them, you're making good money. ESPN, that's good money. Margarito, before he actually fought Cotto, had fought a bunch of times on ESPN Friday Night Fights and HBO and Showtime. That's a couple of $100,000 grand right there. Like you were talking about the down payment on the house and all that. I was reading one of the best fights people mostly have never seen is Roger Mayweather versus Harold Brazier. How do you pronounce his name? Brazier?
Brazier.
Brazier.
Yeah.
Harold Brazier got, I know with inflation adjusted and all that, he earned, $100-something thousand. That's what he was looking for. That was one of his big paydays. He actually allowed him to put buy his house, multiple room house. So people, I think some fighters get greedy too. They want that $10 million
they
payday.
do. And if more fighters tried to be more like Harold Brazier and then just accepted the blessings that came instead of thinking they deserve more than they do, he's quite a story too. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole like I did with Obakar, but he's quite a story too, and another overachiever. And if more fighters fought and lived that way, most of them would not turn out in the financial disarray that 90% of them turn out in. So I'm just going to leave that part like that so I don't go down that rabbit hole. But because there's a story behind him that's really fun to tell, but that's not what the show's about right now. And I'm trying to, back to, if you notice that I haven't really been either in the chat or live really like campaigning and hardcore going for Crawford pretty much since the Spence fight. And you remember I was one of his biggest cheerleaders prior to that. There's a reason for it. You've served your usefulness. If you've served your usefulness, you did what you needed to do. You proved me right on this, and it's not all about me. But what I'm saying is, I'll not say me. Let me rephrase. You proved the people that were rooting and picking for you for a reason outside of being fanboys on analyzing the fact that you were going to win that fight because you were the better fighter. You've done that. Now, what have you done since then? It's all, like you said, been woe is me. I deserve more. I deserve this. I deserve that. They never had to make that fight. You were blessed to get it. They put you out to pasture for a very long time for a reason because nobody wanted to fight you, and it turns out you got it anyway. And God bless you and congratulations. But now you think that everyone owes you a living because you accomplished something that everyone knew you were going to do anyway. It was kind of it's now turned out there was a foregone conclusion. Well, congratulations. Like I said, you worked hard. You got your big ticket. But what you've done since then is to basically cry the fact that no one thinks you walk on water. Yeah. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
People seem to think, well, he's an two-time undisputed pound-for-pound guy. How can you call him a crybaby? Well, he can be a crybaby. There's soldiers out there that take risks every day, and they cry about mundane stuff. They complain about mundane stuff. So, everyone's a human being. Everyone has a soft spot. And Crawford's soft spot is that he's a bit of a bitch, a bit of a crybaby. Well, listen, Chief, we got to go, but shout out to you, man. Thank you for jumping in here.
Thanks for calling me. I was going to have to go anyway, so have a good night. I'll let you sign off, but thank you for calling me as always.
No problem, man. Thank you for being on. I want to remind people that this Saturday, we actually have, like I said, a pretty good day of boxing. We have this one, actually, what am I looking at here? Yeah, on the 29th of March, that's Saturday. There's an ESPN card with women fighting, if you're into that. But in the other card, there's some actual boxing. You got Brian Norman Jr. returning, taking on Derek Cuevas, and Bruce Shushu Carrington fighting there, and Emiliano Fernando Vargas in there as well. Troy Isley is going to be fighting Tiger Johnson. So a couple of good of the top-ranked staples there. So make sure to check that out. Then, of course, the Pay the Farmer rematch. That's taking place. I'm looking forward to that one. And then on the undercard, we've got Angel Ayala taking on Masamichi Yabuki, the guy who holds a win over Kenshiro Teraji, also a stoppage loss, by the way. But hey, he's actually managed to stop Teraji too. So they're fighting for Ayala's IBF flyweight belt, if you're into that type of stuff, the belts. So that should be a good one. And on Sunday, there's another Japanese card, Melvin Jerusalem, who I think is the guy who lost his title to Oscar Koyaso, taking on Yudai Shigeoka for Jerusalem's WBC strawweight title. So there's a whole bunch of boxing this weekend, especially Japan. I'm going to get up early for that one. I think that one's worth it. And I think on paper, it looks like it's going to be a heck of a back and forth affair. Neither guy's shy. No back foot bitches in that one. Let's just say it that way. So, fellas, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe if you've yet to do so already. Shout out to Buddy Lee, Mars Boxeo, The Pigeon, a.k.a. King Pigeon, King KO, Rusty Cage, Knockout Ned, Dwayne Styles. Who else here? Let me scroll up. Rampax Drunken Company, 10-4. Shout out to Rampax Drunken Company, one of the initiated. Desiree, Lester Chad. Who else we got here? Windy City, Warrior Way. Rusty Cage, I think I already called him or gave him a shout out. Virtuoso, Troll, Harry Reese. And if I forgot it, Parukua, shout out to Parukua, DJ Big Leg, Mars Boxeo, Broughton Boxing. Thanks to everybody who called in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the call-in show. We'll try to be back again as soon as possible. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and we'll catch you